Good morning, friends, and welcome to our first ever Saturday Garden Walk and Talk. This is a series of videos that I'm going to put out every Saturday for at least all of April and May. A lot's been going on in the garden, a lot of destruction, construction, and to be quite honest, I'm really behind on everything that I need to get done. So in these Saturday videos, I'm going to share with you kind of a informal progress report. What I got done, what needs to be done, and just overall catch you up on everything that's been going on in the garden because I've been gone from YouTube for almost a whole month. So the first thing I did recently was I carpeted the entire hydrangea room with hellebores. Thanks to Walter's Gardens because they sent out about 20 different hellebores, and let me show you the varieties that they sent. So we have 4 new varieties: Whirlwind Romance, Irish Luck, Childhood Sweetheart, and Romantic Getaway. And I think I do have 2 of those blooming now. So these tours are also going to be a lot less formal than the garden tours. You'll see that there's just so much that I need to get done in the garden, and so I'm going to be kind of airing my dirty garden laundry as we walk along. This is the only garden that I have mulched at the moment. But there's so many beautiful hellebores in bloom now. Let me know if you recognize this downward facing variety. I got it a few years ago and I don't think I kept the tag. Here's a division of hellebore that I took a few years ago. This is Honey Hill Joy, and this is one of my favorite hellebores because it grows really quickly and you can take divisions of it in about 2 or even 3 years time. So as I just pull us up, what I want here is a succession of blooms. I want the hellebores to carpet this area, along with the daffodils. After that, we have iris, bearded iris that is. Then we'll have feverfew, followed by lots of gorgeous hydrangeas, and then we'll end the season with anemones. Down here I have shades of blue hyacinths from Longfield Gardens. I've had those for a while. All these here are white lion daffodils, and some of them are in bloom on the other side, so I can show you. Early Cheer is this multi-headed white daffodil. Really strong fragrance on that daffodil. So here's a white lion in bloom. I really wanted to keep it neutral with kind of greens and whites, and same with the feverfew. There's also a lot of foxglove in this area, and those overwintered nicely this year. Here's an Irish Luck hellebore from Walter's Gardens. Isn't it beautiful? And it has this eggplant center. The petals on a hellebore are called sepals. I always thought that was interesting. Let's take a look at this one. I love the detail on this one. If I circle us around the hydrangea room, I have another hellebore. Let me know if you recognize this one too. My mom got this for me. It might be 6 years ago now. This beautiful deep maroon. Once again, it was before I kept the tag, so I'm not sure what variety it is. Some of those red anemones coming back from last year. I have to rogue those out and give them away. Have some really beautiful hellebores over here with variegated foliage. Right next to that, white lion daffodil. And I tried to plant the feverfew really close to the daffodils so that as the daffodil foliage fades, the feverfew just naturally takes over. So I have them planted almost right next to each other, and we'll see how that works out. Some summer snowflakes in this bed also. Let's head over to the stone rug. We'll circle back and see some snake's head fritillaria. I think we even have some Delnashot in bloom now. There's a bunch of garden updates I can share with you here at the Stone Rug. What I've done so far is take my grandma's lamb's ear, I've divided it, and you'll see it throughout the garden walk multiple times. I'm going for a green, purple, magenta, and lime green color palette this year. Back behind the bench, we have some Pueblo daffodils. I have another stand of Pueblo daffodils closer to the house that I can show you. That's a better representation of what they look like in full bloom. Here's the pots that we planted together, I think in probably October. And I did the lasagna style here, so you can get even more bulbs in a pot by planting them lasagna style. This is Apricot Delight tulip from Longfield Gardens. More of a pink than an apricot. I've grown that one before and I just love it. I love the foliage too, how it has these awesome purple stripes. So I'm hoping you can give me some help here. And you'll see I have a massive amount of weeds here, so I am really sorry. But in this area, I was supposed to have Bellsong, Accent, and Shalome. And I think the one that's wrong is Bellsong. So here's what I'm thinking in terms of which variety is which. And please correct me if you have some of these. So you can see this is the first time I probably ever dug up this area of the garden. And there's just weeds all over the place. Sweet William is planted now. So this one I think is Accent. And then this one was supposed to be Bellsong, and I have no idea what it is. So it bloomed, I guess I would say early to mid-season. It's a smaller daffodil with a small cup, but I'm just not sure what we're looking at here. And then this one I believe is Salome. Now all of these, and look at the weeds in this area, oh my goodness, how embarrassing. It happens, doesn't it? But all of these are facing downward, so I don't really like that. I don't know, I'm not sure about Salome. Here's a closer look at our mystery daffodil. And what I have planted next to my daffodils over here is larkspur, and we sowed this larkspur together in the fall. So you can see it right there. Here, here, and here. So I'm trying to get better at really finding creative ways to disguise the dying foliage of my daffodils. There's another Accent. Here's Delnashaw daffodil. And this bloomed earlier than normal this year. A lot of the daffodils fell over and their heads got dirty in this really crazy storm we had the other day. Did you guys have that storm? Here's some snake's head fritillaria. That would be a really great bulb to put in the lawn. Oh, and I'm really excited to show you the driveway garden. I made some progress over there. Speaking of storms, it started to rain again, but we're here in the main flower walk where I've been making some changes and I intend to make a lot more. I told you about the color palette, and the other thing I've been trying to do is basically more of less, I guess you could say, and space them more sporadically and more often throughout the main flower walk. So less varieties of plants and more of each variety, and then kind of showcasing that plant over and over and over again throughout the main flower walk. Over here in the entrance, I still need to move this yellow twig dogwood because I want to replace it with a hydrangea. But here I do have a stand of Pueblo daffodils. And if you saw the video where we cut a bunch of different daffodils and displayed them around the house, Pueblo far outlived any of the other varieties. A solid 7 to even 9 days on Pueblo. Just such a great daffodil. I have really, really tall lilies in front of that. Bergarten sage, which I decided not to trim back this year so that it can flower. Over here by Grace, I have alliums, tulips, and some purple heucheras planted. The service berry is about to come into bloom, and it gets these amazing white flowers, followed by edible berries that taste kind of like a mild blueberry. lots and lots of tulips to look forward to. I even held over some tulips in my cooler and then planted them recently, so I have kind of a second show of tulips in these spots here where it looks like there's nothing. That's where I kind of added in those tulips that I held over in the refrigerator. I'm trying to think too, I think I removed a lot of stuff or moved things around. We had a gold smoke bush here. I put in an incredible hydrangea right there because I have one over there. Remove the really large grass that was here. The smoke bush went over there instead. And so I have some of my grandma's lambs here. There's some geums sprinkled out all over the place. I took those geums that we purchased last year and divided them, and now I think we have about 10. Maybe we started out with 4. This white tulip here is Exotic Emperor, a Fosteriana tulip that comes back really reliably. That's probably my favorite white tulip. But I love when everything comes back to life. It looks so fresh. This is really my favorite time of year in the garden. And I wanted to do these more informal tours where I'm just not worrying about what things look like and not worrying about the sound or anything like that, just so I can show you to the reality of working in a working garden all by yourself and what you can kind of expect to accomplish if you're in a similar situation. So now let's head over to the garden library and I can catch you up on kind of what happened and what I'm doing to try to remedy all the problems. So we had the library moved up, and when it was moved, the ground was really, really soft. And basically it caused all of this destruction to the back of the property. It made it kind of lumpy and compacted, and it made it so that the soil wasn't draining properly. And I had a really hard time figuring out what I wanted to do with that issue. But I've started to kind of reassemble the garden. And I put 1 raised bed in so far. So I think it's going to be a slow process getting this back in working order. But I think in the end, it's all for the best. So let's head into the library now. So we're just getting moved in at the moment. But right now I have the books organized by topic. So over here I have floral design, dried flowers, which I think some of you sent me those. Over there we have bulbs, corms, tubers, rhizomes. We can go in a while now that Grace exited. There's only really room for one of us to get through the door. Then we have books about cut flowers, books about garden design. We have new books that I got that I'm still reading through. And then over here I have a tray where you can set your coffee or a biscuit or something. There I have an award that my grandma won at the flower show. There's my grandma right there from some newspaper articles that she was in. And here's that special box that I was telling you about. And behind that I have an award that she won for garden therapy. And I'm going to be putting more things out as the days progress. But let me show you what's in this box. So I found this box at our local antique store. And these are just awards that she won. So first award for some kind of design. Oh, sorry, when I hold it up, you can't see the words, can you? Sometimes it doesn't say exactly what she submitted and won the award for, but there's just tons of these. And we didn't even find these until after my grandfather had passed away, because it turned out that my grandma kept all this stuff under their bed hidden, just in like a manila envelope that someone might have accidentally thrown away. So this is a selection of her ribbons, not all of them, some of them are inside. And then over here, my mom gave me this cool ashtray that she found at an antique store, and I put in some of my grandma's tags. Here's some pins too. So this must have been when she was president of the Pennsylvania Garden Club Federation. And then I guess maybe when she wasn't president anymore. I can't really read what this one says. But once again, these are all just in an envelope under her bed. Same as her Master Gardener certificate was just in a manila envelope under her bed. So I've been keeping these here. This was her house number. Then up top, I have some books that I don't use quite as often because it is kind of hard for me to get up there. For the mantle, I was looking for an antique mirror, but I think actually I need something a little bit more simple. So I did order a mirror on Amazon that can just sit right on top of the mantle. And then my dad is doing a really, really special painting for the garden library. I'm still undecided on whether or not I want to put a rug in here. Grace will only lay in here if I put a blanket down for her, so I might want to put a rug over in this area. But it really just has been so nice to have this space. I wrote my first article from in here 2 days ago, and it is really quiet when you close the door. Because as you guys know, the whole reason why I wanted to build this structure was to kind of escape the noise and find peace. We've been living next to construction for about 1.5 years. And so it's so nice to just be able to come in here, right, Grace? Shut the door. And can you hear the sound difference in this area? I mean, it really is completely silent once you shut the door. Okay, let's check out the other part of the garden. So let's call all of this the before shot. So for now, I just have the boxes stacked right there, and I'm using that as a compost pile, which is working out really great. And I'm not really sure yet if I want another box here, if I want to put these boxes in a horizontal fashion, but I'm just going to wait it out until it comes to me. What I'm going to do in this bed right here is build a beautiful teepee trellis, a long teepee trellis with lots of willow posts. And we're going to grow sweet peas right there. So we'll kind of have this wall of sweet peas right in front of the library. I did put in a dwarf Santa Rose plum right here, but you can see the ground is so compacted. I can only loosen it so much, a little at a time. What I probably really need is a tiller back here. But here's the look from the very back of the property. Now let's head over to the driveway garden. We can stop here in Grace's garden for a second. So the electric line that I got the permit for is run right through here. And so I thought maybe I would like to extend her bed and kind of cover up that line. But I think we have a lot on our plate right now. I think I'm just gonna kind of re-edge this, put some more grass seed down, and maybe save that for another year. My husband got the rain barrel hooked up, so now I just need to paint the gutter pipe there. But I really love the look of bulbs right before they open, and it's just all of this awesome fresh foliage with that bloom stalk, because it just screams potential. For me right here, this picture, oh my goodness, with that robin flying through, that's really just perfection. We do have some white tulips in this area too. I think I forgot to point that out. Tulips really sprinkled throughout, but you can see I really haven't edged this area at all. So for these videos too, friends, I think I won't bother to really edit anything out. Looks like we have some dead there in the cypress that we need to take care of. So here's the look walking back. We stuck the birdhouse right here for now. That's not its permanent location. We'll find a new place for that. So what I'll do now is just put Gracie inside, and then I'll see you over at the driveway garden. You know, I don't think I ever showed you this area here where I have this limelight hydrangea surrounded by a formal boxwood hedge. Have I ever showed you that? So the main thing I've been doing over in the driveway garden is editing. I dug up a lot of shrubs and gave them to my parents. And I really want to do the same thing in this garden, basically limit the plant palette a lot more. So last fall, and I can't remember if I told you this, I divided a whole bunch of catmint, spread that all throughout this garden. I also have a lot of heuchera, foxglove, Orlea grandiflora, and larkspur in this garden. There's still some more shrubs that I want to move or remove. I want to move this Wygelia to the main flower walk. That beautyberry I'm going to give away. We're going to bring in some stone to make a path that basically would stop right there by that chickweed. We have this beautiful hedge, a butterfly bush right there. Looks like I still need to prune that one. Invincible Spirit 2 hedge, and I might bring in 2 more Invincible Spirit to create a stronger curve, because I'm still having an issue with people walking in right here and just stepping on all the plants, and I'm not sure why that's a thing, but I really want to find a way to eliminate that. So I have sweet peas to go on both of these. I can show you those now. I have quite a lot of plants out here waiting for homes as I rebuild the raised bed garden. But these are the sweet peas that I'm going to be planting on the trellises. These are Blue Reflection sweet peas. I got these from Baker Creek, bought those. Straw flower there, Dara here, but all these are fully hardened off. So this hedge has some species tulips hidden inside it. And you can see our one cat buddy likes to use this as a scratching post. I can't believe this limelight is still alive with what he did there to the trunk. Here's kind of how the gardens connect. And then I'll take you up to the front. I haven't pruned the hydrangeas up here yet, but the boxwood hedge from Instant Hedge is doing so good, putting on fresh new growth. I don't think I'm going to prune it. I'm probably going to wait till next year, but I need to go ahead, deadhead all of these incredible hydrangeas. We've got some beautiful variegated vinca here that overwintered, tulips. Well, friends, I think that brings me to the end of today's video. I think in a few days we'll go ahead and get started on that sweet pea trellis and get those planted. But for now, I want to wish you a wonderful day, and of course, happy gardening. Bye. Good morning, friends. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Welcome to our weekly garden walk and talk. This is an informal garden walk that I do every week in April and May, and I'm going to tag on a special segment to the end of these videos, which is a book recommendation segment. So each week I'll pick a topic, and then I'll grab my favorite books on that topic, and we'll head into the library and talk about those together. And I hope you'll share some recommendations of books that you like on the topic as well. So this week is going to be garden design books for people who aren't garden designers. But without further ado, let's get into the garden walk and talk. So we're standing right here in my main flower walk. I thought I would start here because this is the gate that we didn't enter through last week. And right here I have a beautiful tulip that I love so much. It's called Negrita Double. This beautiful double eggplant purple tulip with wonderful green streaks around the outer edges. Mingling nicely with that, we have Mount Hood daffodil. A little bit dirty after a lot of the rainstorms that we had. You can see the peonies are coming back, and behind that I have planted alliums. So we'll walk down the main flower walk together, but I don't want to miss showing you that Pueblo is still in bloom. And Pueblo is going to continue to be in bloom probably until May. It really starts early and has a really long window of blooming in the garden. I think in terms of the Bergarten sage right here, I think maybe it's like lavender and its time is just up. I think I will go ahead, prune it back, move it somewhere else, and I think I'm going to replace this hedge of Bergarten sage with geraniums. Let me know what you think about that. Spirea is coming back into bloom now. Under both of my larger limelight hydrangeas, I have Labella Pock, and I'll get us a close-up on that in just a second. Right here at the entrance to the garden, we have a beautiful serviceberry in bloom. The blooms never seem to last very long, but they carpet the garden nicely with their petals. I haven't mulched this area of the garden yet. I'm still working on dividing perennials and moving things around in this area. So let's take a closer look at Labella Pock. I was only able to get my hands on 100 this year, but it's such a wonderful variety. It starts out more of an orangey pink and ages out to a coffee color. In front of it, I have planted some catmint. Right next to that, I have golden sage, some bearded iris, alliums, weigelia. Cheerfulness is just starting to bloom. So I believe I have 250 Negrita double in the main flower walk. And last fall I decided to create my own mixes, so we'll see how that works. So right next to it, we have apricot impression. So where we have Negrita double, we have apricot impression with it. And then where we have purple pride, which I don't think is blooming yet, we have salmon impression. So let's tackle the main flower walk like this. We'll do this side on the way down. We'll swing through the hydrangea room and come back and review what's on this side before heading over to the driveway garden. So I have a lot of holes in here still as I've been moving things around. So sorry about that. Exotic Emperor is still in bloom. Just a fabulous Fusteriana tulip. It almost doesn't look like a tulip. It's so beautiful. So I think the main tulip show will happen next week, if you want to tune back in for that. So here we have the salmon impression, and it's more of a gentle light pink. And from what I remember, this aged out to almost an apricot. And then down here I have Movado. That one's just starting as well. Lots more perennials coming back to life. Siberian iris, peony, veronica, and lots more tulips everywhere. So here's a nice moment. We have our flower lady right here, and I picked her up from Home Goods a few years ago. She's cracked on the back, so they gave me, I think it was 25% off, and I just love her so much. So I have Bleeding Heart planted around her. I love Bleeding Heart. I love all heirloom flowers. I'm really an old soul, so I love any flower that stood the test of time. Last week I mentioned that this bright yellow daffodil was supposed to be Belle's Song, and I was asking what you all thought it was, and someone said Sweetheart, and I looked that up, and it does seem like it might be Sweetheart after all. So I'm undecided on whether or not I'll dig up the yellow daffodils and try again, or whether or not I'll just go ahead and leave them. But let's take one more look at all of these before we continue on. We're supposed to get 2 days of rain, and I'm not sure how heavy the rain is going to be. So here we have Apricot Delight. I just love this tulip, and it's even taller than this when you plant it in the ground. Really, really great for cutting. So here we have Movado. I really like that one. Nice, bold color. Right here we have Accent Daffodils. Beautiful ivory daffodil. Really striking, bright peach in her cup. Back here I have Salome, and I wanted to show this one again because last week I mentioned that the heads hung down, but they did perk up in about a week's time, and now I think I really love Salome. I'll put the spelling of that on the screen in case I'm not saying it correctly. So here's the daffodil that I'm thinking might be Sweetheart now. And thank you all so much for your comments. I know I was definitely able to identify our mystery Hellebore. So here's kind of the look from inside the main flower walk, looking towards the newly painted garage. And if I keep swinging us around, you'll be able to see over to the hydrangea room. And we'll head over there in just a second. Back behind the bench, I mainly have Pueblo, which is the same daffodil I have at the entrance to the main flower walk. A jonquilla daffodil that's just such a great performer in the garden and the vase. I think there might be a few Delnashaw in here that I forgot about. But this area fills in also with Martagon lilies. If you've never grown a Martagon lily, stop everything you're doing and order some, because the smell of a Martagon lily is absolutely amazing. Here we have more salmon impression. That really is such a beautiful tulip, isn't it? Back behind that, more exotic emperor. And I really like the picture that's created right here. Salmon impression, exotic emperor, Pueblo daffodil, apricot delight tulip, Salome daffodil. We have the stone rug with my grandma's lamb's ear. Here's a older hedge of the golden sage. Solomon seal just coming back to life now. So here's kind of a blend I was trying on my own, so we'll see how this works. So this is apricot impression with Negrita double. And I think we'll have to wait until next week to see how we like that. A lot of people were asking for an update on the Insta hedge and the hummingbird fence. So when we had the pad laid, the library installed, and then subsequently basically had to do that all over again when we had it moved, the fence and the hedge had to come out 3 times in the middle of winter. So I wouldn't say it's doing great. Some of the arborvitaes did die, but there's at least 1 or 2 alive within each unit. So all we did was, since we had to basically remove the whole thing to let all the trucks come in, I decided I would rather have the fence on the interior. So that's what you're seeing right now. So there's the hydrangea room, and here's Grace. Let's head into the library. So the main thing I was working on this week was getting all my raised beds back in a workable location and getting them level, because we had that really bad drainage issue all the way back here. And so I'll kind of show you where I landed for the time being. I don't feel like this is the permanent solution for this area, but it's going to get me at least through the spring growing season, and then I'll go from there. So eventually what I would like to do was pull out these 2 raised beds just a little bit wider and do the same thing with these 4 beds so that each path is a little bit wider. So these front 2 raised beds have ranunculus in them, and I believe I planted these out on February 27th, and I think I only had to cover them 1 time this year. One other thing that was interesting, once we moved the library forward, this area over here, which I still need some more mulch for, you can see the cardboard there, became full shade. Also in the very early spring, most of, well, I would say half of the raised beds closest to the library were also full shade, and I thought that was going to be a really big problem. But I think as the sun changes, as we head into summer, that might correct itself. But once these tulips bloom, I want to pull these beds out so we have a little bit of a wider path into the library. So the 2 central tulip beds are pink tulips, Janis Joplin, Pink Impression, and a few others. Here we have a tulip, I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, Mondile. Please correct me if I'm wrong. A beautiful white tulip. And it's really nice. I'll show you the view looking back in a sec, just to see all these white tulips with the white daffodils in the hydrangea room. So here's kind of what I've been working on the last few days. Now this was level yesterday, but now it looks like I need to fix the back there. So I'll get to that before the rain starts. But basically what I did was just embrace the fact that now we had 2 different levels in the garden. And so I leveled these 2 beds to be even with the library. And then I'm not sure if this is going to come across on camera or not, but these are essentially a foot higher than these. So you'll almost step down into this new raised bed area, and these are a foot lower than this bed. I don't know what happened here. That must have just sunk in overnight. And just in terms of trying to deal with this problem quickly, I just decided to mulch this whole area. Grace is in the compost pile right now. So for the time being, I just used what I had. I had some Thin Man arborvitae. So I'm planning on just having a hedge of Thin Man arborvitae right there to disguise the compost pile and the stick pile. Back here is where we have our pear tree, and it's in bloom at the moment. And I might need to build, I might need to go ahead and build a box around the compost pile just for Grace's sake, because she does want to eat it. But here's the look from these two loungers. And I did talk about putting sweet peas on this TP trellis that I made yesterday. I think instead I'm going to do cup and saucer vine and butterfly pea, only because in my area, sweet peas really peter out when it gets hot, and I don't think I want to have to change out the planting right there. So I'm going to do sweet peas on the trellises from Plow and Hearth, and I'll probably put those in today. In this bed and this bed, we're going to have all of our Saving Grace dahlias. That's the original Saving Grace, not her family of seeds, but just her. Straw flower is planted now. But I really do like the view from back here now. We have the Santa Rosa plum, the pear, then we have two tart cherries, a green apple, I'm not sure on that variety, I just call it Summer Rambo, and then we have our Macintosh here. So still just a little bit of destruction, where I think I'll just plant some grass seed for now. But that's kind of the progress report on how the raised bed area is shaping up. And I'm glad that we can at least now move on and get some things planted. So here in the Hydrangea annex, I have some summer snowflakes planted. I also had 100 Ice Follies daffodils, but I did go ahead and cut all of those. I did the same thing in this bed as I'm doing in the hydrangea room. Lots of feverfew, some Alba bleeding heart. Down here I have a variegated Jacob's ladder. I kind of need more feverfew in this garden, but this garden I really haven't paid any attention to yet this growing season. I really enjoy the picture that's happening right here. And you can probably see the arborvitae hedge a little bit better here. You can see, one's dead there, but then the next one's fine. So we're gonna give it a year and see what happens. So the hydrangea room is the only garden that is completely planted up, done, and mulched for the growing season. In case you're brand new, I'm kind of catching up on all my gardening from just some things that happened in my life where I basically had to just take a month off of work. But there are some amazing, amazing daffodils in this area. This is a brand new daffodil. I've never grown it before. It's called lingerie. And isn't it amazing? This is my new favorite daffodil. It just has loads of swirled petals and ivory and yellow. And so this entire garden is blanketed with lingerie and white lion daffodils. And I just think it's so magical. I really love bulbs because I think it gives you the opportunity to paint a picture that is not there, that you just cannot see until months and months later. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But in this garden, it really worked. It's really the picture I had in my head all along. So to show you the difference, here's white lion. So it's a little bit more of a pointed corona versus, let's see if we can get two next to each other. So here's lingerie and here's white lion. Similar, but if these are ever the same price, definitely go for lingerie. More summer snowflakes mixed into this area. And so let me show you the view. If you come through the gate and you just park straight ahead, I just can't get over how beautiful these lingerie daffodils are. I need at least 1,000 more in my life. I had asked about the name of this Hellebore last week, and someone had mentioned true love, and I think that is what it is. So thank you so much for that. So we have that mix of hellebores and daffodils in this garden. But let's circle around, because this might be the only tour where we see lingerie and white lion daffodil looking this good. So let me know what you think about the yellow daffodils in the background. Should I go ahead and take them out? I think I should, shouldn't I? Because I really only wanted ivory colored daffodils in the back garden. But you'll see in the driveway garden, the lawn over there has a lot of yellow daffodils. Maybe I'll move them over there. The thought of moving any more soil around seems overwhelming at the moment. But isn't that glorious? I could just sit out here all day and stare at this area. Hellebores play so nicely with the daffodils. I just love it. Oh, one other thing I did in this garden is the strawberry sundae or vanilla strawberry, whichever one gets larger, was right here. And I have since moved that to the fence line and replaced it with an Invincible Spirit 2 hydrangea. Once again, keeping it just a little bit lower here in the backyard and using those really large panicle hydrangeas over near the new fence line. I'm really enjoying having the garage be this beautiful dark slate color. I'll link again the Perennial Gardens YouTube channel so you can check them out. We're going to have 3 guest garden tours coming up very soon. Those will be Wednesday at 7 a.m. Wonderful gardeners from all over the globe. I can't wait to share that with you. I'm coming up on a work deadline here on Monday. After that, I'll be back to normal blogging here on YouTube. Here's a dwarf lilac right here. I think I failed to mention last week that there's also penstemon in this garden, quite a lot, and I have never seen it bloom before. So this year will be the year to enjoy that as well. More lingerie daffodils. Right next to that, Del Shaw. There's Grace. I decided to limb up the Japanese cedar just a bit, mainly for airflow purposes, also so you could see through into the hydrangea room and see all of these beautiful daffodils right here. But more so than anything, just for better airflow and a little bit more light here in the main flower walk. So still working on this area, still moving things around, creating the new picture for 2024. I have another mystery daffodil over here. Let me know if you recognize it. I have absolutely no idea what this one is. I don't even remember planting daffodils back here, but I must have planted them because they're planted in front of each trellis. And these trellises have false hydrangea vines, growing up them. I think that's the 3rd year for the false hydrangea vine. They haven't grown much in previous years. And then in between those, I have winterberries. So 1, 2, 3 female winterberries, a crepe myrtle, and then the male winterberry is tucked right back in there. I think this daffodil is Silver Smiles. Correct me if you think I'm wrong about that. I've had that one for a long time and I can't really recall. So I probably won't get around to mulching this area for 2 more weeks. I want to still move around a lot of perennials And I've also seeded in some things, like I seeded in some purple alyssum all through here to grow in with the golden sage. So I think we've seen pretty much everything that's back here. We'll come back for the book talk, but let's head over to the driveway garden now. So I did receive a request for a closer look at what's in the driveway garden. So I'll try to go ahead and give you a closer look at things today. There is a ton of chickweed in this garden, which I just started to tackle yesterday, but you're going to see a lot of it. So once these tulips bloom here, which are vibrant red and deep maroon tulips, I'll go ahead and pull them and then work on that new path. It's going to be a stone path, same stone that I used in the hydrangea room, which will lead you right to this bird bath, and then it will just stop. And my hope is that by having this path here, it'll stop people from kind of just walking through the garden. But let's go ahead and take a look at the naturalized daffodil meadow. So we've got some really great varieties in the daffodil meadow. This one here is a split corona variety called Lemon Beauty. You can hear the Amish buggy in the background. You can always tell if it's a tourist or not based on how the person passes the buggy. But I just love Lemon Beauty. This is a really great split corona, and these have really bulked up since last year. If you like yellow daffodils, I would recommend this one called Sheerborn. Look at all of those layers of petals. Gorgeous. More Lemon Beauty. And then let's see if I can walk through here without tripping. There's a lot of shrubs back here. Lots of dandelions. This one is called British Gamble. This one's called Avalanche. And I just love this daffodil so much. I've talked about it a couple times, but the fragrance on here is strong, but it's a very pleasant fragrance. If you don't like early cheer because the fragrance is so powerful but maybe a little off-putting, this one is highly fragrant but a pleasant fragrance. I really don't know what this daffodil is. Let me know if you recognize it. Over here we have Poeticus. I think this one just started blooming yesterday, and I just added this one in this year. So there's Cragford, and this is planted in the lawn behind my flower stand where we have the Rose of Sharon's. And there we have my very handsome husband heading to work. He's creeping to work. Maybe he'll come out riding his bike. But this is how these gardens connect. So I'm right here next to one of our pussy willows. We have the daffodil meadow. And then the driveway garden has slowly become, I would say, slightly formal, but mainly it's a garden full of bulb successions. Oh, he's riding his scooter to work today. In the front garden, I finally got around to pruning the incredible hydrangeas. The tulips that I have here in this box, I believe are brownie. And this apple tree above us is budded up. I still need to go ahead and clean up all of this liriope. But that's, Grace is like, come on back here, Mom. That's how all the gardens connect. So now let's go ahead and head into the library, and I'll show you some of my favorite books on garden design for those of us who aren't garden designers. What do you say, Grace? Our rain barrel is currently empty, so I'm really glad we're going to be getting a lot of rain the next 2 days. How about this view, friends? You know, I need to finish the taxes today, and maybe sitting out here will help motivate me to finally just get it done once and for all. Oh, I guess I haven't shown you the mirror that I got. You know, I really wanted to get an antique mirror, but I just couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. So I saw this one on Amazon, and it really just seemed to be the perfect size. So I can put a link to this if you want in the description section. I made this arrangement yesterday, so let me grab the books. So I definitely want to preface this section by saying that I have such admiration for landscape designers, landscape architects, people that design gardens for a living. For me personally, since I'm not a landscape designer, I'm just a gardener, I find that just sometimes looking at gardens that I admire is what helps me the most. And all the better if books that these gardeners have written talk about garden design in them. So this one, The Complete Gardener by Monty Don, would be my recommendation. Monty does have a new book that just came out, and I read through that the other night. I would say his newest book is almost more for beginners. But I guess what I really like about this book by Monty Don in particular is that he goes garden by garden in this book, showing you the garden and talking about how he created it. But he also talks a lot about design, pathways, plants. Let me show you the index. You know, planning the design, paths, trees, hedges, lawns. I just really love this book. I love all of his books, but in terms of design, I think this one is my favorite. Now let's look at another one. So this is a book that you probably have to get from the library. I think it's out of print. It's by Jack Staub, which is one of my favorite authors. Unfortunately, Jack is no longer with us. I believe his husband is still alive and maybe living in Florida now. And the photographs by Rob Cardillo. I think Rob Cardillo is the best garden photographer in the world. Hands down, I buy any book where he's the photographer. So this book does not talk about garden design, but the gardens that are in this book are so inspiring. I never tire of looking at them. I never tire of looking at the images. Sometimes I can just sit in here and look at one page and get inspired to do something completely new in my garden. So if there's any way you can get your hands on this book, I promise you will not regret it. Just watch out. Sometimes when a book goes out of print, it gets really expensive on the internet. So this is definitely one I would see if your local library has. Love it. Love, love, love Jack Staub. And actually this book I'm also going to recommend is also by Jack. So Jack and his husband were the owners of Hortulis Farm, which you used to be able to tour. I do not think that their actual gardens are available for touring anymore. It's kind of turned into a nursery, but Jack does talk about garden design in this book. And I would say when I first started designing this garden, this was the book that really helped me picture how I wanted certain areas to look. And not like I'm an expert at all, like not at all. I'm always messing up and failing, but I just feel like I can relate to their style. We're in a similar location. We're only about an hour and a half from each other. And they really wanted to embrace Pennsylvania and Delaware rather than try to create something that didn't make sense here. They wanted to embrace our plants and embrace what grew well here. So this is a great book. I think this is on Amazon and it should not be too expensive. And really it covers all elements of garden design. And then this book I recommended the other day, The Cottage Garden by Klaus Dalby. Once again, I tend to just lean into this book more for the photographs. It's well written and I really enjoy what's written in it. But for me, I come back to this book for the inspirational photographs. And it's just great to see so many different gardens in one book. Because within this book, I don't know, there's hundreds of gardens. In Chasing Eden, this is just about Hortulis. This is probably about maybe 50 gardens, maybe a little bit less, maybe 30 to 40 gardens. And then of course this one is just Monty Don's garden. But those are my picks for garden design books for those of us who aren't garden designers. Let me know what your favorite books are on this topic. Well, friends, I think that brings me to the end of this week's Garden Walk and Talk. I'd love to hear about what's going on in your garden, what you're looking forward to. I think by next week we'll be looking really good here in terms of tulips. Will I have the garden fully mulched by then and weeded? Well, probably not if I'm being honest, but hopefully I'll be one step closer to getting everything closer to that final picture that I've imagined in my mind. But it's all about enjoying the journey. And definitely this year, I would say my motto is progress over perfection. And I love this time of year because it really feels like, more so than anything else, hope is really on the horizon. Would you agree? I hope you have a wonderful day, friends, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Good morning, friends. How's everyone doing today? Well, what a difference a week makes. I think last week when we had our weekly garden walkabout, only a few tulips were in bloom, and now all the tulips in the backyard are open with the exception of some in the raised beds. And over in the driveway garden, we have lots of late tulips to look forward to next week. But let's dive right into this weekly garden tour. I think we could even call this the April garden tour because it is late April now. So here I mixed salmon impression tulips with Negrita double tulips. And what I tried to do was make my own mixture of tulips and then repeat those mixtures over and over again as you walk down what I call the main flower walk. So that's the first mixture that I have. And then right next to that, we have some gorgeous Labelle Epoque tulips. I can only get my hands on 100 Labelle Epoque tulips, so I planted these under both of my largest limelight hydrangeas. I think Labelle Epoque translates to the beautiful era, and that sure is a beautiful tulip, isn't it? So even times when I only had 100 tulips, I did try to repeat it at least once. For me, I think the standout of the whole show is the mixture of apricot impression and Negrita double. And those are the more vibrant orange tulips that you're seeing. Right here at the entrance, and I do have the gate closed right now because Grace is next to me, I have salmon impression, which is this one here, mixed with purple pride. And I planted these a little more loosely. I usually dig trenches and plant the tulips really close together because that's the kind of show I like. But there in the entrance, I space them a little bit further apart. So this is basically the color that I'm going to try to maintain in the main flower walk all growing season. These vivid purples, oranges, pinks, and magentas. Hey, by the way, look at that amazing prairie fire crabapple. I can't believe how glorious it is this year. I think I got that for $20 at Tractor and Supply a few years ago. So here's our next mix, friends. This is apricot impression mixed with Negrita double. And I wanted to get varying heights within the mixes too, just to see how that worked. And here's that mixture repeated on the right-hand side of the border. I have some mulch down, but once we get to the stone rug, you'll see I ran out of mulch. That's all right, I'll get to it eventually. What do you think, friends? Is this combo speaking to you? I love orange and purple mixed together, and the older I get, the more I really prefer really vivid, saturated colors. You'll see once we get over to the hydrangea room, we have all white blooms over there, and the feeling is just completely different. This tulip here, I'm gonna put the name on the screen because I think I mispronounce it every time I say it. But that was kind of an add-on at the end of the fall season. I didn't plan to add those into the main flower walk, but they were gifted to me and I'm certainly not going to pass up free tulips. And so I did some mixing with that one too. So here we have lots of different tulips all together. Isn't this a lovely picture? So in the back there, that lighter pink is salmon impression. The vibrant orange is apricot impression. Negrita double is that royal purple. The shorter orange double tulip here, mixed with the one I can't pronounce, is brownie, catmint. And we do have a lot of geums to look forward to this year. We didn't get to see the geums bloom last year because I had just added them into the garden, so I'm really, really excited about that. So you can see I'm trying to repeat that on both sides. And you can see, here's where I ran out of mulch for the week. Next to our flower lady, I repeated again that mixture of Salmon Impression and Purple Pride. So I love growing tulips. I love all bulbs. And over the years, I've tried mixing early, mid, and late season tulips back here. But what I've discovered for myself personally is that I would rather have just early and mid-season in one area and then late season in another. So you really get a full glorious show all at once. And then you have that late show somewhere else, and that's what we'll see over in the driveway garden. So how do you like this picture? Now imagine those yellow daffodils are white like they were supposed to be. I think what I'm going to do is sell the blooms next year, and then we'll just have the foliage there. And we'll maintain that white background instead of having that really bright yellow. Here we have some more Labellipoc. Here we have Grace. Hey Grace, how you doing, love? Gracie says hi to everybody today. She wants to know what your favorite tulip is, and so do I. We have the old Bleeding Heart, the pink one. We also have Alba White. You know, I was just reading the other day that I think, was Bleeding Heart reclassified? Ever since I was a little girl, my grandma used to call it Dicentra, but I think it's been reclassified. I have to look up what it is now. So here's a peek at the hydrangea room. We'll swing back over to that area in just a second. So here's that combination again on a larger scale. And I am seeing what looks like could be tulip fire here. So I will not plant tulips in this particular area for many, many years. You can kind of see on the petals here and here on the leaf. And I did have tulips planted right here last year. So we'll give this area a break, let that soil rest. Back behind that, accent daffodil, still looking great. All these daffodils are still looking great. Pueblo there, mixed with Del Nashaw. Now if we keep moving forward, you can see I ran out of mulch, and I basically just repeated those same combos over and over again. So let's just skip that area for now because I'm a little bit embarrassed, honestly, of how it looks over there. We'll get to it eventually, right? So here in front of the library, we have a couple different varieties of tulips. I wanted to play around with some different mixes, different heights, and varying bloom times. So we still have some yet to bloom in these gardens. But here we have Parissima, I believe. Huge, glorious white tulip, bloomed really early, still looking great. A week on, I would say. And these two beds I'm really loving. This is something I want to repeat in the landscape. So I think mixing tulips in a raised bed is a great way to get an idea of whether or not you like how those tulips work together before you go ahead and invest in a ton and put them in your landscape. So we have Pink Impression is the tall one right here. This one, you might remember this from other years. This is Columbus. This one here is Janis Joplin. And then I thought I had one more variety in here, which is Albert Heijn. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. The Heijn has a J in it, and I'm guessing the J is silent. But I don't think those are blooming yet. Yeah, we'll have to check back in on those next week. Same exact bed right here. I think Grace has a tummy ache from eating those rib bones the other day. She's eating a lot of grass today. So more Purissima, and we'll be able to see the other white next week. I just put the trellises here in the beds for now. I'm not sure if I will leave them in these particular beds or not. And I put the larger trellises in the main flower walk, and I did plant my blue sweet peas on those trellises. So for our book talk this week, I have something really special to show you inside the library and a different and special book recommendation. But as always, we'll end in the library. So let me show you, have I gotten anything done over here since we saw it last? Not much, honestly. I kind of taken a step back, if I'm honest, because as you can see, when I mulched over here, I ran out of cardboard, and now I'm regretting not just waiting because weeds are already popping up. So I need to get some more cardboard for right there and fix that. Pear in bloom. I don't think I really did much back here, and it doesn't look great, but we all have those areas, right? But let me turn us this way so you can see the view from back here right now with all the tulips in bloom. I see that the Kousa dogwood is starting to leaf out now. Kousa dogwood gets its flowers later, more like mid to late May here in my area. How about that prairie fire crabapple? That just sings, doesn't it? Oh, wait till you see the apple tree in the driveway garden. It's two different varieties grafted together, and one section blooms pink and the other blooms white. It's just beautiful. I think this is my favorite time of year in the garden, with all the fruit trees in bloom. Someone suggested painting the rain barrel. I think that's a great suggestion. I might go ahead and do that, or I might just leave that one as is, and then whenever we need a new one, I'll go ahead and buy a gray one. So I can't believe it, friends, but pretty much all the daffodils in the hydrangea room still look good. You know, they're going a little bit papery. Okay, some of them are looking a little bit sad. But overall, I'm still really happy and thankful mainly that we have not gotten too hot and too sunny. Sometimes the heat, humidity, and sun comes on really quickly here, and I'll just pretty much have only a few days or a week with all these bulbs. This year I've had much longer, and the weather looks wonderful this week. So even our tour next week, I think we should have a lot of bulbs in bloom. So let me back up this way so you can see the view from this other gate, and then we'll take a tour going backwards toward the driveway garden. I have some really cool tulips in bloom in a planter in our front yard. Still blooming, but I suppose it is kind of going over now, is the lingerie. Oh, Gracie, you okay, hon? You just ran into a hydrangea there. You okay? Okay, I think Gracie is okay now. I was worried she might have scraped herself there on the hydrangea. So I think in terms of new tulips that we didn't see last week, well, I don't think any tulips were in bloom last week in this area. We have Ivory Floridale. This is a great tulip. So tall, so beautiful. It really exceeded my expectation. I'm still not really sure how to say this one. It's spelled like Mondial. Then someone typed out the pronunciation for me the other week. Thank you for that. And so I think maybe it's Mondial. Let me know if I'm saying that right now. I guess we will have to come in here on Deadhead. At least the white lion daffodils this week. Lingerie seems to be holding up a little bit better than white lion, and they were blooming at the same time. So I guess that's another good reason to go for lingerie over white lion if you have the choice. Sensational honeysuckle is planted on the hummingbird trellises. I did manage to get one for each side of the trellis, so we have 6 plants all together. So let's take a look at white lion. It is starting to fade now. Still beautiful though. And I just love seeing all of these daffodils planted en masse. You know, I live in an area that gets really hot and humid in the summer. Tons of mosquitoes, so many bugs everywhere. And I guess in a way that's probably why I feel okay about investing in all of these spring bulbs, because I know this is my favorite time out here in the garden. And also I feel like I need the garden a little bit more in the spring than I do in late summer. Would you agree with that? After such a long winter, it just feels like great relief to be greeted with all these blooms. Can you hear the train in the background? Okay, so that's the gate that would take us over to the driveway garden. But let's go this way so that I can get Grace safely back inside as always before we head over there. So there's still a lot that needs to be done in the garden. But what I'm really trying to do this year is use what I have. I have now been at this property 9 years. I think I have a picture basically of right here, or maybe it's back even a little bit farther. I think I have a picture of this exact view. When we bought the house, there was a bunch of trash right here. There was trees growing literally like out of the foundation. It was crazy. So that was 9 years ago. And it's been a slow and steady process to try to bring the picture that I had in my head to life. I feel like I get a little bit closer every year. There's still so many things that I would do differently, but I'm really thankful for everything that this garden has taught me. It's really been a blessing to be able to learn on a half acre. You know, my dream has always been to move somewhere larger where we have a little more land, a little more privacy. As you can see, we're here on a corner lot on a main road, which is really great for selling cut flowers. But let's take one more look back this way before I put Gracie inside, just in case we get some crazy storm. You never know around here. And I don't want us to miss seeing this beautiful once a year picture. That's the picture, friends. What do you think? Did the painting turn out all right? So that's where we were at that gate. So this is our driveway here. And look at this beautiful apple tree in bloom. So I'm not sure on the one variety, but the previous owner, which was a shunned Amish man, he did have a tag on this tree and it said Pink Lady. So I'm not sure really which variety is which, but this is such a beautiful tree. And then just going down from that, we have the daffodil meadow. This might be a better view, and my husband's rooftop garden is up there. So down here I have Poeticus, Beautiful Eyes, and Cragford. And these ones we added into the meadow last fall. And over in this side of the meadow we have Sheerborn, which is this bright yellow, Lemon Beauty, and British Gamble. And before I talk a little bit more about my thoughts on having a daffodil meadow, I wanted to show you these tulips here. Isn't this a funny name for this tulip? It's called Sensual Touch, which seems just kind of funny because it's a very prickly looking tulip. But I love the colors and I do love the form. So I've always loved the look of a bulb meadow, and whenever we move, I want to have just a ginormous bulb meadow somewhere. One thing that I learned, this is my 3rd year with the daffodil meadow, is that if you have a really invasive, I shouldn't say invasive, a really strong weed in your garden, such as chickweed, you might want to rethink putting the meadow so close to a more formal or cultivated garden, because what has been happening to me last year somewhat and this year it was terrible, is that since we have to let all of this daffodil foliage die back naturally, that means that the grass is long for about 2 more months now. And what happens is that the chickweed that's in my lawn here has time to flower, set seed, and throw that seed all over this garden. And Nightmare does not even begin to cover the amount of chickweed that is just all over the place in here. So that was a lesson learned the hard way, and you'll see dandelions back there. I don't mind that quite so much. And I think the other thing is, when I put in the first daffodils 3 years ago, I probably didn't even bother to look and see if I had any weeds like that in the lawn. I just never bothered to even think about it because of course you cut it. And so you don't really notice. And you see when we moved here, sorry, almost fell over there. When we moved here, this was all dead plum trees and willow trees lined this part of the driveway. So we want to get rid of those willows right away. You never want a willow near a water line. They were way too close to our house. But just some things that you learn as you go. Oh, was that a cardinal? Hey, Grace. So a few weeks ago, I had told you that I asked my dad if he might consider painting something for the garden library. When I was looking for a piece of art for the library, I kept finding these antique paintings of young girls asleep next to their dog who was at high alert. Basically, it appeared to me that the young girl was completely at peace in whatever location she found herself because her dog was diligently, loyally, and lovingly watching over her. And I thought about purchasing one of those paintings, but then I got up the courage to ask my dad if he might do something like that of Grace. Because, you know, it's funny, you get to see the really sweet Grace, and she is sweet and loving and kind, but she's also quite protective, and I love that about her too. So let's go into the library and look at this painting that my dad did. If you don't know, my dad is an author and illustrator. That's what he did my whole life. And I'm going to link his website in the description section below. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the book Pilgrim's Progress, and he just redid that book. His illustrations are so fun and whimsical, and I think you can pre-order it now. I think the book comes out July 2nd, but you can pre-order it on Amazon right now. And you know, I really had a hard month. I don't really want to talk about what happened, but I almost really just felt like giving up out here. And my dad said, let this be the reset for everything that happened. And when I saw this painting that he did, I just wanted to cry because he captured so beautifully what I want to feel in my garden. I want to feel like this little girl in the painting who finds so much peace and solace in the garden that she can fall asleep under the watchful eye of her loyal companion. And I still long for that, and I still feel like I'm kind of far away from that. But this does give me hope that in the future, this picture is going to be how my garden really makes me feel inside. Well, friends, I think that brings me to the end of our weekly garden walk and talk, or perhaps we should call this the April garden tour. But I'll see you next week for another garden walk and talk. On Wednesday, we have a special guest garden tour, and I should have some vlogs this week as well. Bye, friends. Good morning, friends. How's everyone doing today? Well, welcome back to our weekly garden walk and talk. In case you're new here, my name is Danielle, and I garden on half an acre in south central Pennsylvania. And this year I've been doing a weekly garden walk and talk on Saturday mornings just to catch you up on what's blooming in my garden and what I've been able to accomplish that week or not accomplish, and also what we have to look forward to in the days ahead. So today Rocky is out here with me. Some of you might have seen on Instagram that Rocky hurt his leg last week, or it was 2 weeks ago, I guess. So this is actually his first day back outside, because he's been on house arrest and he really did not enjoy that. So let's start back here at the back of the flower walk. where we have some gorgeous gladiator alliums just starting to open up. These are going to get bigger. Beautiful, tight, round balls, really tall stems on gladiator, and I like gladiator because it blooms early. I have some purple sensation over in the driveway garden. That one also blooms early, but it's a little bit shorter, so I really like to have these really tall blooms over here in the early May garden. Today is May 3rd for frame of reference. And I do like the contrast here between the purple and the lime green spirea. And soon we'll have these vibrant magenta peonies in bloom with a hedge of catmint. We'll circle back around so you can see what's beside me and behind me, because I have some gorgeous, really old viburnums in bloom at the moment. But I'll back up a little bit so you can see what it looks like going from one gate to another. Grace is inside today, so Rocky can take it easy. But this is what you see when you enter the gate to the garden. Sprinter boxwood here. Gold splash euonymus. Gold splash euonymus. I promised you guys I wouldn't really edit these videos, so if I stumble over my words, it's because I'm running very low on coffee by the time we hit golden hour here in the garden. You'll see a lot of these purple iris in bloom, and I brought these over from our old apartment. We used to live in a hardware store that had been converted into apartments, and the only thing that we had in bloom over there when we moved in were these purple irises. So every single purple iris you see is from that old hardware store that we used to live in. I did a lot of dividing, moving around this year, trying to get just a lot better at repeating the same plant over and over again, and we're going to focus in on that all month. I ordered a whole bunch of the same perennial from Walter's Gardens, and so I ordered in groups of 15. I think it was only 5 cultivars total. So 5 new cultivars, but 15 of each, so that we can really repeat them over and over and over again. Beautiful snowball viburnum in bloom now. Hey, let me ask you guys a question. Do you get black bean aphid on your snowball viburnum? I seem to get that. Maybe in about 1 more month, it seems like they show up. Negrita double tulips fading now. We planted these totally tangerine geums last year. I finally found them at a nursery that was kind of far away. So I bought 3, we planted them together, and then about a month ago I divided them and put those divisions around the garden. And it's interesting, so I divided these and left one side of the division in the ground, and then I took the division and put some over here, and you'll see some again later on, but you see the division that I actually had to pull out of the ground and move. Much, much shorter, but still beautiful. We're gonna have catmint in bloom by the time we walk and talk next week. Alba bleeding heart is in bloom now. And I think this area right here is where we're going to put the new alfresco fountain. And I believe that has been shipped. So I think we'll be able to get it into the garden this week. Won't that be exciting? Have that sound of water back here in the garden once again. My ball fountain broke, was it last year or the year before? But I think that was a blessing in disguise because it was a really quiet fountain. So the alfresco fountain is nice and loud. So there's a total of 35 gladiator alliums in the main flower walk. Right there I have some Dame's Rocket, and our real estate agent gave me that Dame's Rocket when we first moved in. She also gave me the Solomon seal that you'll see later on. You can see the Negrita double tulips over here that get a lot more shade. They're still looking pretty good. They're fading, but in the shade, they're not quite as spent as the ones in the sun. And you can see some Dame's Rocket being repeated there. So as we pass our flower lady, we'll see some lady's mantle And the bleeding heart is starting to go over now, I guess. It's just getting really hot really quickly here. It was 90 degrees in April. That's really crazy for our area. This is the area where I had to pull out all the tulips a few days ago. They had tulip fire. I was toying with the idea of putting gladiolus here, but I decided not to do that. I'm going to do some anemones here instead. So if you can imagine that with anemones, we have some nice texture here. A beautiful smooth hydrangea, that's the old school Annabelle. A really large hosta that was from my parents' garden before they moved to this area. And soon we'll have that oak leaf hydrangea in bloom. This area is surrounded with Amsonia, and Amsonia is one of the plants that I ordered a lot of this year from Proven Winners. I love the blue flowers, but I think the foliage is what I love the most. It looks great now, and in the fall, of course, it's just that blazing yellow color. This must be a different cultivar than these ones that I probably purchased at a later date. But I think the stone rug is looking pretty good. Not too much in bloom there now. And to get a different view of how the stone rug connects to the hydrangea room, let's walk through the hydrangea room and then to the raised bed garden together. So all of the daffodils in the hydrangea room have been deadheaded. Most of the tulips are passing on now. So I'm really relying on the shrubs to take over, the bearded iris, the beautiful Mount Everest alliums. I'm really relying on those plants to carry us over in terms of blooms during this beginning portion of May. So there are some reblooming lilacs in this area. The main difference that I see with these reblooming ones versus the older varieties, which I really adore, is that these don't have too much, if any, fragrance, but they're still beautiful. And I like that the bloom structure is a little more open than the older varieties also. Looks great in floral design. You know what? This one holds a lot better in floral design than the older ones. So that's a positive. Sacrifice scent for longevity in the vase there. So there's more of that purple bearded iris from our old home. And my husband calls that the grape soda flower. He has really weird and quirky names for all the flowers in our garden. He calls foxglove ding dong bells. He should do a garden tour one time. That would be hilarious. Look at this bearded iris that bloomed today. Does anyone recognize this variety? I don't remember planting a white bearded iris, but I'm gonna have to review my notes, see if I can figure out what it is. Let me know if you recognize her. I can see myself wanting to add white bearded iris. I just can't really recall when I planted that or why I would have just planted one. So if I pull us back and around, I think I mentioned that I removed the really large panicle hydrangea that used to be right here because I really want to keep things a little bit lower this year so that we can see through the garden a little bit better, especially as we get later into the growing season when my garden gets really tall. I wanted certain pictures to stay, I wouldn't say low, but more of like a mid-range height versus feeling like a jungle. I often feel like by the time we hit August, it feels and looks like a jungle back here. So I'm trying to get better, figure out how to make some adjustments. The Mount Everest alliums are just starting to open now. Once again, I really love how tall this allium is. And I'm disguising their dying foliage with daffodil foliage, which dies a little more slowly. Allium foliage dies as they bloom, and that can be kind of hard to deal with because right as the allium is blooming, their foliage looks tattered and yellow and the tips look brown. So I always try to hide them in and amongst perennials or other bulbs. Doesn't that look beautiful together? And it's funny, They really do smell like grape soda. So let's go ahead and I'll turn us this way. So I think since you saw the library the last time, I've kind of extended this area, and I've also created a pathway back and around to the library, and also, well, let's just walk over there. So I don't think this pathway was here before. We had kind of this narrow grass pathway that led back to more kind of grass that would be there randomly, and it was really hard to cut. So I've just been hoarding cardboard, and I just put cardboard down everywhere, all around the library. And then when the mulch went on sale at Lowe's for $2, I just kept getting as many bags as the truck could handle. And I think I'm going to be really glad that I did this, because I really want to do less maintenance on things that I don't really love doing. So even if it's just that I save myself, you know, 10 minutes cutting the grass over there and getting out the weed whacker, I think that's worth it at the end of the day. So in these front two raised beds, we have ranunculus. And I did see that we have some bloom stalks appearing. I don't really think they're going to be open for Mother's Day, just because it's going to be raining nonstop and it's going to get really cold again and overcast. I don't know. We'll see what happens. They don't all have bloom stalks. But I'm also seeing that, we have some bachelor's buttons that popped up. We also have this, which is a terrible thing to see. This is Tree of Heaven, so I'm going to pull that out. Oh, didn't get the whole thing. That's what the spotted lanternfly really likes. But look at this. I'm seeing these feverfew seedlings all throughout this bed where we sowed the forget-me-nots, which are right here. So I'm just going to let everything go and see what happens over here. We might end up with a really happy accident. So all of these tulips are pretty much done now. And I plan on pulling them in about a week. As always, we'll end in the library for our book chat. Back in this bed, I'm experimenting with interplanting strawflower and gladiolas. So those are already in there together. Here, once again, I took your advice, just did more sunflowers. This is a single cut sunflower. These are the Pro Cut Peach. And then I've been mulching around them with grass clippings. And I'm just gonna keep flipping this bed with sunflowers until the season comes to an end. But last time we had a garden tour together, I was able to show you a before and after picture from a particular view. And I think I have a picture of what this looked like when we first moved in. So there's still a lot of work to be done back here, but I think we're trending in the right direction. I'm going to go ahead and pull all of these tulips in about 3 to 4 days. The two central beds, I'm going to put Asiatic lilies, and then I'm going to come immediately in and seed saponaria, bupleurum, and nigella around those lilies. And then on the exterior beds, I'm going to do a mix of vegetables and dahlias. So I'm really excited about that. I think that will be really fun. So as we head over to the driveway garden, I'll try and answer some questions that came in this week. A question that I often see is in regards to irrigation. I don't have any supplemental irrigation. I don't have any drip irrigation. And up until last summer, when we put in the instant hedge, I didn't even own a hose. And that's because when we moved in here, our house had been, I don't know how to say this except vandalized in a really weird way. So if you went down into our basement, a shunned Amish man was living here prior to us. And what had happened was he had basically cut all the power lines and all the utility lines in the basement, kind of vandalized them and lit them on fire. So our house was called a handyman special farmette. That's how it was listed. Nothing really worked. We couldn't live here for many months after buying it. Anyway, all that to say, we didn't have a hose and we didn't have a spigot that worked. but that's just telling of how often it rains here. I didn't even think to fix that spigot. So the sun is really nice now. This must be golden hour. Here's a look back to the library. Another question I get is about fertilizing plants and flowers. That's not something that I do personally, but I'm all for whatever everyone wants to do in their garden. And that could be too, just we get so much rain, and I focus a lot on adding a lot of compost into my soil. It's not something that I've ever even really tried to do heavily. Speaking of fertilizer, here is a comfrey plant. This is a beautiful view now, isn't it? The light's much better now than before. There's a comfrey plant which makes really good all natural fertilizer. You can just cut that down, put the leaves in a bucket with water, cover it up, and let it sit for like a month, and it'll stink really, really, really bad. And then you can dilute it and use that as a fertilizer if you want. But this is looking really beautiful now that the sun set. I almost feel like I need to be quiet when the sun sets, you know? Let the garden sleep. Don't be too loud. Creeping phlox in bloom now. I think we planted that together. Oh, some of our native woodland phlox. Did Rocky just climb the tree with his hurt leg? Well, I guess he's not taking it easy after all. So here we go, friends. Sorry for the shaky camera work. There's our rain barrel and just some things that we all have that we need to store, like the wonderful pooper scooper and the garbage cans. But that's the other gate. Some people were asking how these connect. And this brings us to the driveway garden. You can tell that we're going to get a storm. You can feel it in the air. Some people were asking about the liriope that lines the driveway garden. They were asking if I cut it back and if I like it. I do cut it back in, I guess, mid to late spring. I do not like it, honestly. I wish I would have done something like boxwood instead. You know, it only looks good for a small amount of time. It's kind of tough to divide. And then over the winter, it just really doesn't look nice. But you know what? I got it for free, so I'm thankful for that. So here's where I have all my double late tulips. We have Road Star tulip and Midnight Magic. So let's get in closer on all of those. I can show you too that some of that shorter catmint that we planted together is starting to bloom now. And I've been trying to edit this garden down so that once again it can increase the repetition and decrease the one-off plantings. And I'm looking forward to adding that stone pathway right here really soon. More gladiator alliums. These are older bulbs. These are coming back from, I guess it was last year that I put these in. And I do like the combination of the crimsons and the purples. I think that looks really nice together. So let's get a closer look at each of these. So this one here, that's more red, is Midnight Magic. And then the darker one is Road Star. And then we have lots of foxglove, or as my husband says, ding dong bells, to look forward to that are also going to line this pathway. And I want to let all of this bloom before I disrupt anything here with that stone pathway. I think we planted these tulips together, didn't we, friends? And I like the look of them. I really struggle with these double late tulips. Once we get close, you'll see weather damage on them. Not really a sickness or a disease, but it just gets so hot so quickly, and you have all the moisture, And what we're looking at here isn't old blooms. These just bloomed, but they just never have a chance to really look good. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. But next year, I might not do any late tulips. I don't know. Let me know what you think. So I think the garden is really going to hit another peak next week, and maybe that tour we'll call the May Garden Tour. I guess it seems like I almost have 1 week where I have an explosion of blooms and then kind of a resting period or an in-between period, and that's kind of what I feel like is happening now. Up all the trellises are blue reflection sweet peas. Every single trellis has the same sweet pea this year. But let me show you a surprise bulb over in the front yard garden. So you might remember how I did that big renovation up here last year. Well, I have never seen these yellow tulips before, and I didn't plant them, but yet here they are. So how do you think that happened? Was it just me clearing away all of that plant material? So I don't know how this happened or where these bulbs came from, but they were a pleasant surprise. I see we have a fern, a little blast from the past fern. The light's just beautiful now, isn't it? So let's head back into the garden library now. And today's book chat is going to be about floral design books. That was a request I had. And I think for the book chats, I'll try to keep it to just 2 books. But I'll show you an overview of all the books I have on that topic, in case you want to pause the video and find some more. Since the last time you saw the library, I did add a little bit of lighting. I added these wall sconces that I got from Amazon, and those are doing really good in terms of holding a charge. But I got a light bulb from Amazon to put in this Tiffany style lamp, and I think I'm going to return that because I think it's only lasting maybe 1 hour. So I have to think of something else. I might not even have that lamp in here because the sconces are doing a good job of lighting things up in the evening. So I have everything arranged by topic. So I kind of have cut flowers right here, or when you're talking about just a specific kind of flower, then garden design right here. And then most of my floral design books are right here. And let me grab the 2 that I feel like I couldn't live without. So I might have mentioned both of these books in the past, maybe even many years ago. But even though I get more books on floral design, these are still my 2 favorites, and I just go back to them over and over again to learn more, to discover more, to be re-inspired. But this one, Color Me Floral by Kiana Underwood, is my all-time favorite book on creating floral designs that have an artistic flair, that feel like the creator is coming through in the creation. I think that's so powerful. But the reason why this book is incredibly helpful is because she takes you step by step. And so I never knew how to design something that looked like this, but every single design in this book, she breaks it down by step. She tells you all the ingredients. And for me, it wasn't even so much about using the same ingredients or the same vessel or even the same colors. It was really just discovering how she structured these designs. And she always uses a pin frog, which you guys know I love. I'm crazy about pin frogs. But I love Kiana Underwood, and I think this is the most helpful book that I've ever purchased in terms of understanding how to create a more elaborate design. Now this book is just as good. It's called Cultivated: The Elements of Floral Style. Now this book is more pictures and instructions, not too much writing. This book is a little more writing with pictures. One thing I like about this book is that all of the pictures are just on one page. You know, when they do a spread and the floral design is on both pages and it's broken up, I don't really feel like you can get the sense of the design. But it's great just to look at the pictures of her work and to be inspired. But she gives you really great lessons all along the way. But once again, I just love her style. She has a more artistic flair. There's history lessons in this book, learning how to discover your own style, constraint, that's so important and really a hard thing for me personally. But this is just another great must-have book. And I think both of these should be at your local library because they have been around for a while. Well, friends, thanks so much for joining me for another weekly garden walk and talk. These are really fun to do, and it's nice to know that even if I mess up, even if my words don't come out right every once in a while, that you guys just accept me just the way I am, just the way that I'm feeling that day. And I just really appreciate that about each and every one of you. I have quite a few vlogs coming out this week, lots of fun things that we're going to get around to. But for now, I'm going to head off. I have a bag of pickle flavored popcorn calling my name and a nice cozy pair of football pajamas to put on. If we wanted to make these garden tours really realistic, we would do one where I was in my PJs in the morning, wearing my sunglasses, and probably having on some boots. Boots, PJs, sunglasses, oh, and 2 Velcro rollers on the top of my head. Yeah, now that's a garden tour. I'll see you next time, friends. Bye. Good morning, friends. How's everyone doing today? It's time for our weekly garden walk and talk, and I'm thrilled that you're joining me today because the garden is looking so beautiful and so much has changed in just a week's time. So many new blooms to look at this week, and all the color palettes are really starting to make sense. I have a soft pastel color palette here in the driveway garden and in the hydrangea room, but in the main flower walk I have really saturated, vibrant hues. So let's take a look around at all my gardens. So here in the driveway garden I have pinks, soft purples and deep purples, a little bit of white, and that's pretty much it in terms of the color palette over here. The star of the show, well, what is the star of the show? Is it the foxglove? Is it the bearded iris? Let me know what you think. I can never pick a favorite flower this time of year. So many really cool alliums too out there on the market. That one is called Schubertii, and here we have Pinball Wizard. Pinball Wizard is a little bit shorter of an allium in terms of comparing it to something like Ambassador, but it really has a nice large ball head still. And all throughout the bearded iris and the allium plantings, I have lots of catmint. Some of this catmint is quite tall, and I got all of that from a friend's garden, and some of it is really short. And I really like the variance in height. I'm able to use the same plant, but different cultivars to kind of mix it up. Taller catmint in the back, shorter catmint in the front. So how about this beautiful Ozark Rebounder bearded iris? That's the deep purple bearded iris you see on the right hand side of your screen. I just love it. I don't remember it reblooming, but apparently it does, so I'll have to pay better attention come September and October. So the foxglove that I always grow is Foxy Foxglove. That's a first year blooming foxglove, but it does bloom the second year also. Here we have another great bearded iris called Persian Berry. I love the color on this one, and it looks really great next to Pinball Wizard. Gladiator is the allium that's kind of going over at this point. We have some large alliums like Christophii. This one's Sicilian honey garlic, and I'll put the Latin on the screen. Let me know what's the darkest bearded iris that you grow in your garden. I'd like to add in some more next year, and I'd really like some suggestions for deep, deep purple, and if you have a black variety you like, please let me know that as well. So you'll see that I did not add the stone pathway yet, and that's because I'm thinking about swapping out the bird bath in this garden for a statue. I have a statue in my mind's eye, and I'm looking for a statue of a young girl, about maybe 4 or 5, that's just reaching up towards the heavens. Maybe she's reaching out for a butterfly, a bird, a hummingbird, but she's so excited that she's just kind of filled with glee, almost looking like she's dancing and just reaching for the sky. So if you know about a statue that looks like that, let me know and I'll start saving up for it. But I might wait on the path until I get that statue and then put it all in at once. And the main reason I'm doing that is because we have the new fountain in the main flower walk. So I think I would like to just maintain one water feature rather than 2. Now, speaking of the main flower walk, let's go ahead and head back into my backyard now. Technically, since we are on a corner lot, we have 2 front yards. I suppose we actually don't have a backyard, technically speaking. That's kind of funny, isn't it? Do any of you find yourself in that situation? Here we have some pinball wizard alliums that came back from a previous year. Grace really loves these. You have to watch her though, because sometimes the bees come and get her. The peonies have just started to bloom. So I just really have my early peonies at this point. I can't tell you how thrilled I am with the addition of the alfresco fountain. Having the sound of water and having loud water in the garden really makes this area feel so much more serene and peaceful. I almost just want to sit here and not say anything and just listen to the sound of water. So here we have a mix of gladiator and ambassador alliums. So the ones that are going over more, those are gladiator, those bloom first. Then ambassador comes along, blooms second. Ambassador is a tighter ball, a little bit taller, much larger leaves. I definitely prefer gladiator because the leaves perish more quickly and they're not so big. The ranunculus have just started to bloom and I decided to move, I believe it was about 15 of these Aviv Pickety Pink White into the border. I kept the majority in the raised beds and I've been cutting on those. You'll see once we get over to the raised beds, none of them are in bloom because they've all been sold at the flower stand. But I thought I would take about 15 plants, put them in the border so that I could enjoy a few ranunculus this year as well. So I stepped into the border for this shot. I just love standing behind the geums and seeing the orange and the purple together. This is really a color palette that I want to continue throughout the entire growing season. And so I'm planning for that in the coming weeks by adding more orange into the garden. Grace is on a little adventure this morning. She's always getting around to something. Here I'm standing next to a ginger wine 9-bark. I believe this shrub is probably 5 or 6 years old now. Beautiful color all year round, wonderful blooms. I highly recommend it. Now let's take a look around the hydrangea room, and I have something that I am so excited about blooming in this garden. You might remember that 2 years ago in the fall, we planted some bearded iris rhizomes together. And this is the first year that we get to see them blooming because they didn't bloom last year. They just put on a few leaves. But the rhizomes had enough energy to bloom, and here they are. Aren't they gorgeous? These are Florentine silk bearded iris. I don't know if I've ever seen a more beautiful flower in my life. Absolutely stunning. The Sensation honeysuckle has just started to bloom. It has such wonderful fragrance. I'm trying to find more areas where I can add in Sensation honeysuckle, but I'm just not sure where else to put it yet. I'm really thankful to have bearded iris and some alliums in the hydrangea room. If I didn't, there wouldn't be anything at all going on in this garden during this period in mid-May. But these Mount Everest alliums and the bearded irises on both sides are able to carry us through, because what's going to happen next, oh, and we have some foxglove in this garden too, but what's going to happen next is that all this feverfew is going to bloom, and then really shortly after that, all the smooth hydrangeas will bloom. But I really like this moment in mid-May. That's kind of a transition period for the hydrangea room, and it's nice to have at least a few tall blooms to enjoy. So now let's head over to the Hydrangea annex. I think I have failed to show you this garden for, goodness, maybe a year or two. I haven't really done that much in this garden. I've just tried to cover the ground with plants. I do have about 100 to maybe 200 Mount Everest anemones in this garden. The Hydrangea annex is located under the canopy of the Kusa dogwood tree, which you can see there on the screen now. Isn't she such a beautiful tree? My all-time favorite tree is the Kusa dogwood. We have one here, one in the driveway garden, and I think the one in the driveway garden isn't fully colored up yet. So we're back here in the corner of the garden where we're going to be working this week. Not a lot going on, but I have something really special to tell you. On my grandma's birthday, which was just a few days ago, she would have been 89 this year. She passed away when she was 74. On her birthday, her peony bloomed. And you guys helped me figure out over on Instagram that this peony that I got from her garden is probably Shirley Temple. So this is a really special moment in the garden. I have this peony underplanted with golden sage. I love the contrast there. This sage is technically quote-unquote evergreen in my area, southern Pennsylvania, but I will warn you, it looks pretty bad until I guess maybe early April, and then it just springs back to life. I don't know if I would say it's evergreen, semi-evergreen maybe. There's some Amsonia planted right here next to the bench, which reminds me that later this week, well actually at the beginning of next week, we're going to be receiving our large perennial shipment, and we're going to be extending the main flower walk so that it doesn't stop at my grandma's garden, but it actually continues on until it meets the right side of the garden library. So I really want the main flower walk and the repetition of the plants that are in the main flower walk to continue all the way until you hit the right side of the library. And I think that's just going to look so beautiful. I was very specific about the plants that I ordered this year, and I only ordered things that are purple, blue, and magenta. I'm going to bring in orange through some bulbs and some dahlias, but I really want to keep the vibrant areas vibrant, the pastel areas pastel, so that each garden has its own unique feel. I want you to feel peaceful in the driveway garden, and I want you to feel excited and alive back in my main flower walk. And speaking of using color in the garden, I want to recommend this book called Grounded in the Garden. It talks a lot about how to use color in the garden, what works together, what doesn't work together. And this is a brand new book. I think you could get it over in the United Kingdom a couple months ago, but here in the US we could just get it. And I read it in just 2 hours, and I can't wait to read it again. This gentleman's use of color is just phenomenal, and it really speaks to me as someone who likes to paint pictures in the garden. Well, friends, it's time for me to say goodbye because it's early morning and I have some bouquets I need to get out to the flower stand. But I want to wish you a wonderful day out there in your gardens, and I'll see you later this week. Bye, friends. Good morning, friends. How's everyone doing today? Grace and I are really excited to resume our weekly garden walk and talks. All of the hydrangeas are in bloom, and we have lots of lily successions to show you, and even a sunflower succession in bloom at the moment. I'm really happy with how all the gardens are looking and transitioning, and I can't wait to show you the driveway garden because it's looking very patriotic at the moment. But since it's mid-June, let's start here in the hydrangea room, because all of the hydrangeas are looking so beautiful, and I'm not sure that their color is going to be this good again. We're going to get into the hundreds later this week, which seems crazy to me. I think that must be a record, that it's going to be 101 in a few days. So we'll see what that does to the hydrangea room. But if you're brand new, this is a garden that you can watch me create here on YouTube if you like. I believe it's about 2 years old now. The right side of the border is 1 year older than the left side, but I think they've pretty much caught up with each other. So you've probably seen most of the hydrangeas before. So I'll try to focus on what's going on around them too. So right now, blooming around the hydrangeas, we have a stilbe. And a few years back, we planted a whole bunch of bare root astilbe in this garden from Longfield Gardens. This is a variety called Pipit. It's so beautiful on the shorter side. And this beautiful bubblegum pink, which looks so nice with the mini mauvette hydrangeas that you're seeing right here. I'm always talking about this hydrangea because I just think it's so beautiful. And it's called Limetta. And I love seeing the white hydrangeas right next to the pink hydrangeas. I think they just look so beautiful together and create this lovely tapestry of color. So take a look at this side first maybe, and I have been cutting in this garden, so you see a whole bunch of feverfew missing here, and that's just because I cut flowers from my gardens and sell them at a small roadside stand. So if you see holes in the garden, that's probably why. So this hydrangea right here is mini mauvette. The one behind that is Invincible Spirit. I have a wee white hydrangea tucked in right here. And Grace is making her way through Haas Halo. So just a lot of different varieties of smooth hydrangeas. Haas Halo is a smooth lace cap, and all the other ones are smooth mop heads. We'll get to Invincible Lace down there, also a lace cap. Also blooming in the hydrangea room is this Magic Green Feverfew, which is a fall sown feverfew. And I think that looks really beautiful. I always try to do a different cut flower in this garden each year. I've done Orlea, feverfew. Next year I might come in with something blue. Maybe I'll do larkspur or nigella in here, but I usually do keep it white, just so that the hydrangeas really get a chance to shine. Okay, here comes Grace. Let me get her something to play with. So while I've tried to repeat the hydrangeas on both sides of the garden, I have not mimicked them symmetrically on purpose because I wanted a more loose, natural feel. That's just what I like personally. Here we have Invincible Lace. So that's this beautiful pastel pink lace cap smooth hydrangea. And you can see it's a little bit further along than Haas Halo. Oh, here's a catbird right here, not minding our presence at all. Haas Halo is just such a beautiful hydrangea with really strong stems. Speaking of strong stems, here's Incredible, and here's my hand for frame of reference. I'm holding an apple in case Grace gets anxious, and I'll just keep throwing apples at her to keep her busy. Incredible is so great. It's the improved version of Annabelle, which you see I have there in the distance, and I decided to cut Annabelle way back. I mean, I think I probably only left about 6 inches on Annabelle this year. So we'll see if that helps at all. Hey Grace, you want an apple? Here we have another Invincible lace. And as we travel around the hydrangea room and we take a look at Hummingbird Way, you can see there in the distance Grace's garden where we made that new bench earlier this week. So we've got Invincible Spirit 2 right here. Invincible Lace next to that. Haas Halo in the background. And I think this garden looks even better since we painted the garage that dark granite color. And you can see the sun has just risen and is shining on the garden now. So it's nice, we can really see the true colors of all these hydrangeas. Invincible Ruby is in between each arch. I lost one Invincible Ruby in the front. I think that's because I must have smothered it with the feverfew accidentally. So there's room to put in some more astilbe right here. I might go ahead and do that. I did leave in some begonias that were not supposed to be hardy in my area right here. And you can see that they did come back, and I wish I would have left more of them in. Here's the bench that we made the other day. And I've started to line Grace's garden with some stone. Some of the stone is from Country Garden Girl here on YouTube. Some of it's from my dad, and some of it I've just dug up from around the property. But here's that free bench we made the other day with Harry's stone on it. Here's a hydrangea that's looking really good this year. It's called Let's Dance Rave. Oh, let me throw Grace another apple. We have lots of wiggles this morning. But this is a garden that I don't think I've shown you much this year. It basically has things that I've just gotten for free, divisions from around the property. I'm pretty sure this hydrangea is Tough Stuff Aha, and those blooms have more of a water lily form to them. Oh, don't let me forget, I'll also show you the hydrangea that I propagated a few years ago from cuttings I took of Nico Blue. That's in the hydrangea room. Astilbe in bloom now. I'm pretty sure that one is Bridal Veil, but there's Grace sitting in her garden, and she's looking onto the hydrangea room. I was just talking the other day about how I feel like mountain hydrangeas are really underutilized. So there's a lot of big leaf hydrangeas and mountain hydrangeas here. Here's another Let's Dance Rave, looking so beautiful, and we're about to come upon the original Tough Stuff, which, look at this. I mean, it's just covered in blooms. There's just as many blooms, or shall we say bracts, as there are leaves. And I have that right next to another Bridal Veil Astilbe. And so this area is pretty much morning sun, maybe about 2 to 3 hours of sun in the morning, maybe 4 hours, and then shade the rest of the day as it gets shaded from apple and cherry trees. So that's where we started our tour, over in the hydrangea room. Now, if we circle around the hydrangea annex, we'll see more hydrangeas, because you can never have enough hydrangeas. And here we have the snowflake oak leaf hydrangea. Most of the hydrangeas in this garden are pretty small. I put them in as really small plants. But this garden is located under the canopy of a Coosa dogwood tree. And I have it underplanted with some feverfew that we started from seed together probably 2 years ago now. So there's definitely room for improvement over in the hydrangea annex, but there's been a lot going on this year, so I haven't concentrated on that garden too heavily. Once the feverfew goes to seed, I think we'll go ahead over there and make it look a little bit nicer. But let's go ahead into the main flower walk now and take a look at some more hydrangeas. You can hear the horse and buggy there in the distance. Here's a nice view of the garden library through the hydrangeas. And even though there's not a lot going on in the raised beds right now, I want to tell you my plan for both sides of the garden library. And actually, with that in mind, let's actually stand right here because I think it will make more sense. So I was standing here the other day just looking at this view in the evening, and I thought, this is what I want the sides of the garden library to look like, because I kind of just stuck the raised beds back in immediately after we moved it because I wasn't sure what to do. But what I want to do is take out the one raised bed in the fall. Our local nursery tends to get a really nice shipment of hydrangeas in early fall. So once that happens, I'm going to eliminate this raised bed that has the trellising, the teepee trellising, and then I'm going to create a hydrangea garden on the left and right side of the garden library that kind of mimics the hydrangea room. It's going to have Haas Halo, Invincible Spirit, Incredible, Invincible Lace, and Ruby, I think. So we'll just have 5 of those hydrangeas on both sides. And then I think I want to come in with some really tall, skinny evergreens, 3. 1, 2, 3 on each side. So we'll work on that in the fall. But the ornamental oregano is looking really nice. This is someone asked me about the thyme that I'm growing from seed in the cracks. I think it took really well. You can see though I probably seeded it somewhat sporadically, so it's a little uneven. I think I need to get some more seed, but it did take well. There's a really gorgeous lily back here with wonderful fragrance. Some people call this the regal lily. It gets super tall. You can see it up there in the crabapple tree, but it's a trumpet lily. And each stem has, I don't even know, maybe 20 blooms on it. We have some Dara seeded into this area. And there's some calla lilies coming back. Here we have our first saving grace dahlia. And this is grown from my personal tuber stock, and I'll show you the ones grown from cuttings as we get closer to the entrance gate. Some beautiful sweet peas right now. We have lots of Verbena bonariensis that has seeded in the cracks of the stone rug. And I think it's time to remove some of this lamb's ear, but I'll wait for that heat wave to pass before I go ahead and do that. Gatsby Gal oak leaf hydrangea right here with some imperial blue larkspur, Amsonia, some gladiolas that will bloom in July. And here we have Annabelle hydrangea, and that's the one that I told you I cut it way back, all the way back to the ground essentially. So that's how the stone rug is looking. Grace and I can show you what's going on in the back of the property now. So here we have a bed of pro-cut peach sunflowers. Either I'm colorblind or something's wrong here because, am I crazy? These are not peach at all, right? Yeah, I'm confused about the pro-cut peaches. I don't think I'll grow them again. When they opened too, they kind of made a mess, even when I was cutting them tightly. So I think that was my main seed failure this year, was these pro-cut peaches. Kind of a waste of space back here, but we'll replace those with floret zinnias in about 2 weeks. Now here I have my bed of straw flower that's interplanted with gladiolas. You can see the gladiolas down there. So my thought and hope and plan was that by the time this straw flower bed was ready for its first cut, we'd be cutting it back down to the point where the gladiolas could take over, get that cut, and then hopefully have all the later cuts of the straw flower. So this is a combination of the apricot and the seashell mix. The apricot seed I had left over from another year, and the seashell mix I had purchased new this year. but this is the very back raised bed. So we'll keep these raised beds. We'll keep this one, oh sorry, can't point, I get all blurry. And we'll keep that one where we have Desert Sun sunflower. And then we will just eliminate this bed right here as we make a garden on both sides of the library. In all these beds, I was having issues with soil being compacted. So I did a lot of planting just to break up the soil. So you can see we did these radishes in a video together, and I grew those just for the purpose of aerating the soil. You can see they have started to go to seed now. Those are the wasabi radishes. And then since we've created shade here, I decided to seed in some lettuce, and it's looking really nice. Hyacinth bean is climbing up these trellises. And to utilize the space under these branching sunflowers, I planted spinach, and I'm going to repeat that henceforth. This combination has worked out so well, and my family and my parents have been able to eat this spinach continuously for the last few weeks. And it's cooler and it's shaded under those sunflowers. So that's just really wonderful. I'm growing a mix of vegetables and ornamentals in these raised beds here. Nothing too showy to look at the moment, but here's the basil that was getting eaten by something a few weeks ago. I did nothing and it came back. You can see I have bells of Ireland in there with dahlias, tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. We have lilies in the front, interplanted with saponaria. I did cut back all the ranunculus in this bed, but all the corms are still in the ground. God bless you, Grace. All right, let's head over to the driveway garden now. So I'm trying to go for a patriotic color scheme over here in the driveway garden. And this is a continuous color scheme that I'm trying to create with different bulbs and annuals for cutting. So you see I have the larkspur blooming right now. Once again, this is imperial blue larkspur. And I have it interplanted with a couple different kinds of Asiatic lilies. Asiatic lilies are the first to bloom. So down below we have pink country. And then I do have a lily mix, an Asiatic lily mix planted also back here. I'll have to put the name of that on the screen. I can't remember exactly what it is. We have some yarrow that we started together from seed last year. It's finally blooming now. And look how tall that dara is. That dara is probably 6 feet tall. So I'm gonna get the red, quote unquote, which is really more of a deep raspberry pink, through the use of different lily successions. And sorry if it's a little bit loud over here. We do live on a main road. We have Orlea grandiflora seeded throughout this garden. I wouldn't say that this garden is looking awesome or finished by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think we're getting there, and it does have a nice succession of blooms. And I thought I was only growing blue reflection sweet peas up these, but I'll put another name on the screen because I seeded a bunch of sweet peas one day and I think I might have mixed up the labels. But we also have some sea holly back here for that blue color. And these plants I got as small plants last year from Jung Seed. I think they might have bloomed a little bit last year, but they've really taken off now. So you can just kind of see all these lily successions that will be coming on in the weeks ahead. I pulled us back to the corner of the driveway garden, which is located under the canopy of an apple tree. So it's getting some shade in the afternoon over here. And we have an old Nico blue hydrangea. Oh, I have to show you the propagated hydrangea. We have Rosella's Dream right here, which is a beautiful Asiatic lily, really early. Behind that, we have a fig. Okay, so while I'm thinking about it, and I need to bring Grace back out here because she's barking like crazy, here is the hydrangea, one of them, that we did water propagation on. Once again, you only want to propagate a plant that is not under patent currently. So this is a Nico Blue Hydrangea. And so this is what this plant looks like 2 years after I took cuttings from it. And I think I took the cutting in June. So it's almost exactly 2 years old. The Instant Hedge boxwood is looking so beautiful. And all we have up here in the front is the Insta Hedge boxwood and the Incredible hydrangeas. So let's head into the main flower walk now. We have more sweet peas growing up the fence. I think what catches your eye right away, oh, here comes the sun, everyone. Hopefully you can see all right still. I think what catches your eye straight away are these Eastern moon lilies. These are easily 6 feet tall. I think they're either 3, maybe 4 years old now. They're just getting started. I personally don't smell anything when I walk by these, but they're so gorgeous. And just look at how the petals reflex. I think I could do just a 3-hour video staring at these Eastern moon lilies. I might be the only one that wants to watch that kind of video, but I just love lilies so much. More sweet peas growing up all these trellises. So we're kind of lulling here right now. I did lilies in pots. There's 5 different lily pots, but they're all OA lilies. They're Kabari. And I think what I should have done is an additional 5 pots with Asiatic lilies, something like Pink Country, so that we would have a focal flower earlier in June. Because as you can see, it's kind of lulling here in the main flower walk. There isn't really a focal flower to look at. There's a few regal lilies in here that I don't even remember planting. Saving Grace is getting started, but everything's kind of resting before the dahlias start and before the OA lilies start. So I think lesson learned there. Next year I'll do some Asiatic lilies in pots as well. Foxglove still in bloom. Lady's mantle looking beautiful. The pineapple lilies that aren't supposed to be hardy here also came back. But as you can see, kind of in between week here in the main flower walk. So we can head into the garden library now. I asked on the community tab if you'd like to talk about dried flowers or plant propagation. And definitely people wanted to talk about plant propagation. So I do have one book that's completely dedicated to that. And then I also want to reference the Master Gardener Manual because they have a great chapter on plant propagation. And I think if you go to your Master Gardener office, you should be able to look through one of their manuals. I'll double check on that. Grace, you want to go in the library? So here we have the Plant Propagator's Bible. I think the most useful part of this book is the explanation of all different types of cuttings. So whether we're talking about softwood cuttings, semi-hardwood cuttings, semi-ripe cuttings, hardwood cuttings, she explains how to do each one. This leafing cutting is very interesting. I've never done that before, and we should try that together because we have some begonias, the begonias that I was talking about in the hydrangea room. Let's try that really soon. So some things I think are readily available on the internet in terms of how to do these things, but I think it's nice to have a book where you can just look at it. And I tell you what, whenever I open one of these books and look through it, then I immediately want to go into my garden and just propagate everything and try out some different methods. So that's what it looks like inside the Plant Propagator's Bible. If you go through the Master Gardener program, they have a chapter dedicated to plant propagation, which I think is really good. And here's a direct comparison from the Plant Propagator's Bible to the Master Gardener Manual. Both very helpful. Both cover pretty much the same things. So I think this is a really great book, and I also want to go ahead and put a lot of free links in the description section on not only plant propagation, but specifically bulb propagation, because I feel like the best resource there is free and on the internet, and that is just to go to that Cornell University website and search the bulb that you're looking for. Well, friends, I think that brings us to the end of this week's garden walk and talk. We're really excited to get back to these, and pretty soon we'll be doing 4th of July bouquets at the flower stand. We'll see you sometime soon. Bye, friends. Good morning, everyone. Grace and I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're both really excited for today's garden walk and talk. We have lots of new blooms to show you. There's Gracie to say hello, making her rounds this morning. And the main thing is that we have all of these beautiful lilies in pots blooming. Now, this is the first year that I ever attempted to grow lilies in pots, and this idea came to me because I saw them growing over at my mom's house. She decided to grow lilies in pots because she was trying to figure out a way to avoid rabbits and squirrels bothering the bulbs. And so she grew her lilies in pots and didn't have any trouble with the rabbits and the squirrels. The main reason I wanted to give this a try is so that I could have a movable focal flower display in the garden. And also it allows me the chance to have the bulbs bloom and to be able to see them bloom and then place them in the garden versus planting a bare bulb in the ground and trying to imagine the picture. So we're currently standing inside the main flower walk. You can see I went ahead and added some more orange annuals into the border. These are sun patience. You can see here in the corner of your screen, my first Saving Grace cutting has started to bloom, and one over at my mom's house is in bloom too, so that's very exciting. You'll see that my personal stock of Saving Grace dahlia is blooming all throughout the border, so we can get a nice close look at her. She's so beautiful, and the bees love her so much. But let's just start right here and work our way through the garden. We did finally get a break from the heat, and we got a little bit of rain. And the Fall in Love Sweetly anemones are starting to bloom. This golden sage I just put in this year, but I can show you some later during our garden walk where I have an older hedge, and it's really full and beautiful and lush, so we'll have to wait another year on that. But I have that golden sage back planted with some orange sun patience. I keep seeing sun patience at all of our botanical gardens. So here's a close look at the Kaveri lily. Amazing. Orange, yellow, a little bit of red there as you go towards the center. So I have 5 pots of Kaveri lilies, 7 lilies per pot. I started these all on our porch, and I grew them on the porch, which is located right next to our hose for easy watering, until about maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and then I stuck them in the border right as they were about to bloom. So let's check in on the hydrangea room now. I think the last time you saw it, we had Invincible Spirit in bloom, and she was pink. But you can see now Invincible Spirit 2, Mini Mauvet, and Ruby have all turned that dusty green. And they'll remain that dusty green until probably around late September. And at that point, all the hydrangeas will start to go brown here in my area. I think the only thing that I did in this area since you saw it last was that I did go ahead and I pulled out all of the feverfew. So you'll see that we have some holes in this garden. And I also added in some sun patience over here. This is the Compact Blush Sun Patient. And I thought it just brought a nice pop of color. And they also kind of remind me of hydrangeas. So here's what Mini Mauvet looks like this time of year, late July in South Central Pennsylvania. So this starts out more of a vibrant pink, and then it just kind of continues to lose color until it's eventually green. Haas Halo looks great all throughout the growing season. It starts white, then turns this beautiful chartreuse green. I'm not sure that Little Quickfire was in bloom the last time you saw it, but it's in bloom now, and it's even started to turn pink. And then here we have Invincible Spirit 2, which was that beautiful dusty pink color, a silvery pink, and now it's basically completely green. Now in terms of other hydrangeas turning colors, the Gatsby Gal has started to turn a pinky brown. So let's head over there and get a closer look. It's so beautiful, isn't it? And I see I have some weeds popping up in the background here that I need to take care of. That's okay. We had a really crazy heat wave followed by a big storm. So here's what Gatsby Gal looks like in late July in my garden. And you can see Annabelle is that beautiful chartreuse green. I want to harvest some of that today and make a wreath for the upcoming fall season. So now this brings us to the raised bed garden, where I did a big flip just yesterday. So you see we're kind of in between blooms here. Here comes Grace. I am really happy with how this creeping thyme is performing. This is from So Right Seeds, and I added in some more seed to those new stones I added in. It hasn't sprouted yet, but I've just been coming through here with scissors, and I've been trimming it that way. Here's the drops of Jupiter oregano that we planted together a few months ago. It's looking great and is blooming now. And check this out. This is really interesting. You know that euphorbia that Proven Winners sells that we had planted here last year? Well, I looked online and it said it's supposed to be sterile and not produce seed, but it's coming up everywhere throughout the cracks, in other raised beds. Like, let me even show you in this bed. And I really just have a menagerie of flowers and herbs and veggies in here. But look at that. There it is again. There it is. And I've actually been coming over the time with a mower, so you can see I mowed it right there. But I guess maybe it's not sterile after all. Martha Miller is in bloom at the moment, and I think she'll be available for purchase next year. So now we come to my raised beds, and you can see I just have some different kinds of tomatoes growing. I'm really happy with how we grew the basil around the dahlias. I think that worked out great. And we've been making lots of pesto. So in these middle raised beds, we had lilies and saponaria just a few weeks ago. And just last night, I removed everything that was here and planted in the floretsinias. The dahlias are just getting started, so I'll probably hold off on kind of a dahlia tour until a week or two from now. But you can see there we have David Howard. And here we have a beautiful artichoke coming on. And so I just have a mix of peppers and dahlias here. We had some jewels of opar pop up in this bed, so I'm just going to go ahead and let that go. But this is the Alpenglow from Floret. Over here we have some of my favorite tomatoes, and I used to grow all of these at work. This is black Russian tomato, which I think is the best tasting tomato that you can grow. Here we have the California Gold tomato. Let me pick one of those. So beautiful. Just a classic yellow tomato. Over there I have Celebrity, which is a quick to set fruit tomato, early blooming. All of these, with the exception of I think Black Russian, are determinate tomatoes, meaning that they grow to a determined size and they have a certain amount of fruit they're going to set. You can see the desert sun sunflowers are starting to go over. And this is where we had that branch come down onto our back fence. So we have to do some fence repair back there. But one thing that's happening that's a fun surprise is that the purple hyacinth bean vine, you can see the fence is broken back there. The purple hyacinth bean vine has started to attach itself to the garden library. So I'm just gonna go ahead and let it do that. And what I'm going to do is come back here and help it attach itself to the library, probably attach it to the windows and have it grow up the roof. And then we'll have this really cool tunnel to walk through. So you can imagine, right, if that's attached to the windows and the roof, and we'll just be walking through all of these really cool purple hyacinth bean vines. I think that's going to be really fun. So here's what it looks like from back here, kind of in transition this time of year. I would expect in about 2 weeks, everything will look full again. But now let's head over to the driveway garden where we have lots of lilies in bloom and where I'm going to be making a really big change in about a week. In this garden, we have a number of lilies in bloom. This gorgeous tall white lily is very fragrant. It's called Casablanca. It's an oriental lily. For me, oriental lilies bloom in mid to late July. We also have this gorgeous deep pink lily with freckling. It's called Stargazer. Some people were asking me why some of my lilies are tall and some of them are short. So the ones that are shorter and have less blooms, I cut that particular bulb last year. When you cut a lily and leave only a small portion of the foliage and stem behind, it will be shorter the next year. Over in the other corner of the driveway garden, we have Rose Lily Tatiana, which is a beautiful double oriental lily. It looks quite similar to Stargazer, but it has a much more subtle and pleasant fragrance. This is a wonderful cut flower, wonderful in the garden as well. But if you like Stargazer, but you find the scent overpowering, perhaps try Rosalie Tatiana instead. All right, friends, it rained for a few hours and now the sun is setting, but I wanted to make sure and share with you a new book that I am so passionate about. This book really reignited my love for floral design, and it was also a really inexpensive book. I don't even know if saying that this book is about floral design is accurate, because it's really more of an artist whose medium is florals. I think that's probably a better way to describe this book. So let's head into the garden library. I think I got this book for $18 on Amazon. And she inspired me to break out the Delft pottery and fill it with Lisianthus, because the only thing better than one bunch of Lisianthus is many bunches of Lisianthus. So here's the book. It's called A Sweet Floral Life, and this is such an amazing and inspiring book. This book really has it all. It has tons of history on floral designers, floral painters. It gives lessons in floral design. She talks about photography. I know I'm not on those pages yet, but the photography section really helped me a lot. She talks about finding your own personal style, staying true to your heart. I just absolutely adore her. And then as this fun surprise at the end, she does sugar flowers that look 100% real. I mean, wait until you see this. That is one of her sugar flowers. Isn't that amazing? So she walks you through the whole process of how to create these sugar flowers. And we are just going to have to try this come winter. So I just love this book from start to finish. You know, when you pick up a book and start reading it, you either immediately connect with the author or you don't. And when it comes to this book, I just immediately connected with the author, and I could not love her or that book anymore. All right, one last look at these gorgeous Lisianthus before we say goodbye. Good morning, friends. How's everyone doing today? Grace and I are really excited for our weekly garden walk and talk. We have a lot of new lilies to show you. And the first thing that I want to share with you is that our experiment of planting lily bulbs in pots and then bringing them into the landscape right as they bloom was a great success. This is something I'm going to definitely repeat in the future. Not only is it nice to have a movable display, but it also allows you to see the picture before you put it in the ground permanently. And what I mean by that is that when you're working with a bulb of any kind and you plant it in the ground, you really have to use your imagination in terms of what that bulb looks like blooming in the landscape. And sometimes I feel like I get it right, and often I feel like I get it wrong. But by planting these lily bulbs in pots, I can move them around the garden until I'm happy with the picture. And then what I plan to do is plant them right where you see them today. But I want to do lots more bulbs in pots moving forward. So at the entrance to the main flower walk, we have Fall in Love Sweetly Anemone blooming. And right next to that, I have a new hedge of golden sage that's just starting to grow and fill in. And just a few days ago, I decided to add in some orange sun patience because after I saw the Kaveri lilies blooming in the pots and I saw that beautiful boldness and richness and brilliance that the orange lilies brought into the landscape, I wanted to add even more orange into the garden. I don't think I've grown sun patience ever, so if you have, can you please let me know, can they really handle full sun? Can they handle wet conditions? That's what the tag said, so we'll be putting them to the test here in my garden. And I also interplanted them around some newer perennials, just so that everything looks nice and full all summer long. You'll see there Saving Grace Dahlia is blooming in the main flower walk. I have her repeated over and over again, I think about maybe 10 or 12 times. I have 5 lily pots total with 7 lilies in each pot. And I got this idea from my mom, who has to grow all her lilies in pots because she struggles with rabbits and squirrels, and she finds that growing lilies in pots really helps eliminate all of the problems that you can face when you have lots of bunnies and squirrels visiting your garden. I really enjoyed it too because I just had these pots on our front porch until about a week ago, and at that point then I added them into the landscape, and so they were right next to my hose, really easy to water them every day, every other day. I'm just so excited about growing more plants in pots and then putting them in the landscape. So much fun. I'm really trying to get better about using the same plants over and over again in the main flower walk so that I can have bigger impact. So you'll see the Some Patience again, lots of catmint, Saving Grace over and over again. And the best part about Saving Grace is that the bees just adore her. She bloomed about a month after I planted the tubers. Oh, there's a bee right there. And she's just a beautiful bubblegum pink single dahlia with this lemon yellow center. I'd like to add in a few more sun patience right here. And over here on the other side, where we're underneath the shade of a cryptomeria, I planted some orange begonias. And I think those are going to look really beautiful. It says those are hardy down to 7A, and technically we are 7A now. So I'll be leaving those begonias in the ground and I'll tell you how it goes. So the other day when we were cutting flowers together, I told you that it had been really hot here and very dry. Following that heat wave, we had a few big storms and Annabelle did fall over. But you know what? It's not really bothering me this year. Maybe I'm just embracing that Annabelle falls to the ground. I normally try to pick her up or staker ahead of time, but this year I decided I just wasn't going to worry about it. We have some gladiolus in bloom. I'm pretty sure this variety is called Vista, and we also have some cleome. I think we threw these cleome seeds into the garden 2 years ago because I used to have it over in the driveway garden, and one year we collected the seed and we just walked around the garden and threw seed everywhere. Speaking of throwing seeds and plants around, a few years ago we grew some Verbena bonariensis and we took cuttings of it. And this stand of Verbena that you see right here is seedlings from the cuttings. Just so beautiful. Once again, the butterflies are loving it. I love the airiness that it brings to the garden. And here's some more saving grace. A few sweet peas still in bloom. The ones that I had on the fence line that get full sun all day, they kind of bit the dust, but the ones within the main flower walk are still in bloom. Here you can see a hedge of golden sage that's a little bit older. Now we just planted this ornamental oregano a few weeks ago, and it's already filling in beautifully, and it's even started to bloom within just the last few days. So let me get close on those blooms so you could see them. Beautiful purple blooms. And then in the cracks of the stone, I've seeded in creeping thyme. I got a jumbo pack of creeping thyme seed from a company called So Right Seeds, and I was really happy with these seeds. I just sprinkled them in between the cracks, and you can see a mixture of the creeping thyme and also some annuals that we had growing back here last year have seeded themselves in between the cracks of the stone. Eventually, I'm going to trim the thyme back so that it borders the stones. But for now, I'm just going to let it grow a little bit wild until it gets established. But I really think it's a wonderful fragrance to have. It's soft on your feet. It makes the stone a little bit cooler for grace. And what I've been doing this week is adding a little bit more stone and a little bit more seed, courtesy of So Right Seeds. And I'll put a link to their website and Amazon page in the description section below, because I think a packet of seed was only about $5, and you can't beat that for the number of thyme plants that you're able to get out of that packet of seeds. So now let's go ahead and walk through all the raised beds. This year, I really wanted to have more of a potager feel. I was missing working in vegetable farm management. I was missing the amount of vegetables that I used to grow. And so I decided to mainly combine flowers, vegetables, and herbs. So this first bed has our mixed planting of forget-me-nots, bupleurum. We have a little bit of Dara in here coming back from another year, but mainly we have the seed line that I'm working on, which is going to be called Sharing Grace. So this is the children, the seed children of Saving Grace, which is what we have in the border. They're all going to be a little bit different because when you grow dahlias from seed, each bloom is uniquely different because a dahlia has 8 chromosomes. So there's lots of chances for it to be different color, different petal types, different petal count. And here we have, oh sorry, that was Grace in the background. Here we have Martha Miller. This is the dahlia that we named for my grandma, Martha Miller, and I believe that dahlia may be coming to market next year as well. So this bed has a bunch of different dahlias. They've just started to bulk up, and you can see some magic green feverfew and some forget-me-nots in this bed. So I wanted it to be a little more loose. I still wanted it to be a cutting garden, but I just didn't want row after row of flowers in raised beds. I wanted more of a loose cottage potager feel this year. Here we have a lily that is just amazing. If you're looking for a wonderful lily for cutting, this lily is called Royal Sunset. It always sells well at the flower stand, lasts a long time in the vase, just wonderful. And so you can see I'm just growing it along with some tomatoes, some cherry tomatoes. People are asking me about these stakes. These are from the no-dig fence that you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot. And so we have basil that we started from seed together. And you can even see some bupleurum in there. Oh, I'm sorry, not bupleurum. Bells of Ireland, more dahlias. And I love the airiness that this pink beauty saponaria brings to the raised bed. It's so beautiful. I like to use it cut in this pink flower stage. Also, after this pink flower stage, it'll turn into seed pods. And as long as you grab those seed pods green, they also are wonderful in a vase. Here it is mixed with the Royal Sunset lily. I'm pretty sure Royal Sunset is an OA lily. I'll have to check that. It might be LA. And we still have some Forever Susan lilies to bloom here, and the lollipops already did bloom. And I'm going to be sticking with this orange and purple color palette for our spring bulbs. So all the tulips this year, I've already ordered them. They're all going to be orange, purple, and maroon. And I've ordered massive quantities of only 6 different varieties. We've got a lot more dahlias in here. David Howard. I snuck in some peppers and some artichokes into this garden. And you know what? Let me swing around to the other side of this bed so you can see it better. We have cucumbers growing up this trellis. Tomatoes, lilies, basil, bells of Ireland. This really brings me back to before I did YouTube, or excuse me, this really brings me back to before I started making YouTube videos. This is more what my raised bed garden used to look like, a mix of vegetables and ornamentals, because at that point I was still growing cut flowers in rows in front of the raised beds. Here we have a sunflower that I'm just crazy about. This is a new one. It's called Desert Sun. I highly recommend it. Nice and tall, a branching sunflower, long-lived, and the petals have a little bit of a sheen to it. So I've grown the Pro Cut bicolor before. I think this one is much nicer. I cut it. It lasted well in the vase. And here we have a planting of sunflowers, which I'm allowing to go to seed for the purpose of cutting and selling in the winter. If you look back, and I'll try to link it in the description section, I make these bird seed wreaths at Christmas time and sell those at the flower stand, and each one needs a really big sunflower head. So sometimes for me, sunflowers are more valuable as large seed heads later on in the winter than they are as cut flowers blooming, because so many of my neighbors sell cut sunflowers for a very small price. So that's why you see that sunflower bed going to seed. Here we have our straw flower and gladiolus planting. I don't think I'll repeat this again. The gladiolus are not doing that great. Some of them are blooming. Here we have the seashell mix. And here we have Peter Pear's gladiolus. I think it was just too overcrowded, not enough light could get in. I don't think I'll repeat that again, but it was worth trying. Live and learn, right? Hyacinth bean vine climbing up the trellis, radishes going to seed now, giving us more privacy back in the garden library. And so this is what the backyard looks like from the back corner of the raised bed. Just love seeing all the orange. Do you like it? Do you like orange? Do you like yellow? Do you like red? Do you like the hot, vibrant colors? There's something about orange. It just makes me happy. I don't know what it is. What's your favorite color in the garden? So let's circle around the hydrangea annex. Still nothing really going on there. And we can head through the hydrangea room. Back behind me, we are dealing with an issue. Our pear has fire blight again. We had that a few years ago. We thought we took care of it by just cutting it out, but this year it came back with a vengeance, and I'm not really sure why, but the tree is not doing well. So say a prayer for my pear tree, if you will. So now we arrive at the hydrangea room and hummingbird way. Some people were asking me about where I got these arches. These are from Plow and Hearth, and you can also get them on Amazon. I'll find a link for you, put it in the description section. I think this is such a wonderful garden. Not only is it easy to maintain, it was easy to lay out, but it's also a completely hidden garden, and I'm not sure I've ever said that before, but this garden is located 100% behind my garage. So you can't see it from any window inside my house. You can't see it when you pull into the property. You can't even really see it from the road. So it's really a secret garden, a private garden. And what's better than a secret garden? A secret hydrangea garden. So I do have one big surprise in store for the hydrangea room. And it's a big, big surprise, a loud surprise. Do you have any guesses? And I think the hydrangeas are still looking good. The color is starting to fade a little bit on Invincible Spirit too. But Mini Mauvette, Ruby, those ones with a more vibrant pink color, they're holding the pink really nicely despite the heat. And we got really hot and the humidity was really high too. We were having about 94% humidity and almost 100 degrees. Now what I'm pointing at here is that I did take out a panicle hydrangea, move that over to the library in very early spring, and I'm really happy I did that. You get a nicer view through the smooth hydrangeas. You're not stopped by the large panicle hydrangea. I think that was a good choice, and I'm glad I went ahead and moved that really big hydrangea. We talked about how Annabelle had kind of flopped over in the storm. So let's circle around the hydrangea room and take a look at Incredible, which is the improved version of Annabelle. And since we had that storm, we can really tell the difference. Here we have Incredible, and it's basically completely unfazed. You would never know we had a big storm come through. But you can see there on the left of your screen where Annabelle has really fallen over. So now let's travel back down the main flower walk. I decided to film when the sun was out because I thought it might be nice to see the birds, the butterflies, and the bees. Oh, was that a monarch butterfly? Oh, there it is again. I think we might be seeing our first monarch butterfly of the season together. What a special day. This is definitely the orange garden tour. Orange lilies, orange butterflies. What could be better than that? So let's pop by this lily before we head over to the driveway garden. This lily is easily, I would say, 6.5 feet tall. It's called Eastern Moon. I think 2 weeks ago I said it didn't have a significant fragrance. Friends, I need to take that back. In the evening you really can't smell it and it has a wonderful fragrance. So I apologize for the misinformation that I gave you that other week. I guess when it first starts blooming you don't really notice it. But now that it's really in full bloom, it's definitely just a wonderful fragrance after all. All right, so here's one last look at the main flower walk on July 2nd in full sun. Now let's head over to the driveway garden, and we are going to completely switch color palettes because everything is pink and white over there with a dash of red. Let's head that way. I think we have about 4 or 5 different kinds of lilies blooming in the driveway garden, and there's a succession of lilies that will happen starting now and continuing on for about a month. So we'll keep revisiting this garden and seeing different lilies bloom. But right here in the front we have Rose Lily Samantha, which is this beautiful double oriental lily, a light fragrance on that, and such a wonderful color. That would be great for the baby shower. We still have some Dara, but for the most part I have pulled out all the cool flowers and replaced them with zinnias. We have some Lucifer Crocosmia. My grandma grew tons of that, and when I visited her garden many years after she passed, maybe 10 to 15 years later, Crocosmia was one of the only things that remained after someone else took over. So here we have the Gaucho lily. What a great lily. So tall. I would say that one's about 6 feet tall. You can see I'm staking it up, giving it some help after the storm. Here we have a new one to me called Marlin. This one is so beautiful. And it's only maybe 3 feet tall now, but that's just because I planted the bulbs in the spring. So it'll be much taller next year, at least 4.5 feet. There it is again. And some people were asking me about the yew hedge that we put in last year. So it's doing good. It's growing well. They were really small plants when we put them in. You can see a lot of weeds have blown in back here, but that's all right. I'm not really too worried about that. But in time, we will have a beautiful evergreen backdrop for this Invincible Spirit 2 hedge. So that's a look at how the driveway garden looks this week. So friends, thanks so much for joining me for our weekly garden walk and talk. Until next time, Grace and I want to wish you happy gardening. Bye. Good morning, friends. Grace and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Grace is excited for today's garden walk and talk. She's got her snack. She's having a Macintosh apple today, and we're excited to walk you around the gardens. Today is September 1st. You can see the Sensation honeysuckle is reblooming. The hydrangeas have turned that beautiful dusty green and antique rose pink color. And it's just a wonderful time out in the garden. The weather has finally dropped back down into the 80s, so we can really get back out into the garden, enjoy things, and get some projects done. And this week, we started work on the new book nook, so I'll show you what that's looking like. But let's take a look through the hydrangea room. And do you see those gorgeous Bacardi dahlias in the distance? Those have just started to bloom, and I can't wait to show you how gorgeous they are close up. We still have some more panicle hydrangeas coming into bloom in the hydrangea room. And I really love this view looking through the hydrangea room into the garden library. And you can even see just a hint of the book nook in the distance. So I thought I would try to focus on what I want to accomplish moving forward in each of these gardens. So in the spring in the hydrangea room, we have all of those gorgeous lingerie daffodils. So this garden room is probably the one that is the nearest to completion. I don't have any big plans for the hydrangea room moving forward. I don't plan to change anything. I don't plan to really add anything in terms of bulbs, perennials, or shrubs. I just really love this garden because it's a nice, calm garden that transitions all by itself without too much effort from myself. So let's go ahead, travel through Hummingbird Way, and Grace and I will take you to the new book nook. Now let me show it to you from straight on because you can kind of see it if you come at it from the hydrangea room, but if you come at it from straight ahead from the main flower walk, you don't see it at all. So let me actually back up. We're traveling down the main flower walk, which is the main gate into my backyard, and you have this hidden garden in plain sight. That's really what I'm going for here, that you enter this garden and you think, oh, that's cool. What's this structure in the distance? And as you kind of travel down the main flower walk and you see all of these beautiful oranges and rusts and greens with the sun patience, and David Howard is starting to bloom now. I'm hoping that people kind of enjoy this repetitive, vibrant color before the main flower walk opens up. It kind of shows you the hydrangea room on your left, but when people come over, I don't really feel like they look to the left. I feel like they continue to look forward. You have the stone rug with my grandma's stone there. And we need to lay another ton of gravel. So all of this is going to be gravel. We just ran out. So we're gonna finish that this week. So we hit the deck that we made together. And you know what, friends, I think I have a picture, an aerial picture from 2016 of what this looked like when I used to grow cut flowers in rows. So I'll put that on the screen now. So we used to have 2 raised beds here in the center just because that's how I had the garden set up for many years before we installed the library. So we remove those, set them on the side, and now what I'm trying to create here is what I'm calling a book nook, but basically a hidden garden, a hidden seating area to just sit and relax near the garden library. And so I moved the Adirondack chairs into here. I moved the tables into here. And we have a lot of different plant material going on. So when you're sitting in those chairs, you really can't see into any of the other garden rooms. You really are just focused on the people that you're in the book nook with. But there's still lots that I want to accomplish in this book nook. All of these raised beds are going to move over to the left side of the garden so that we can create this room of Haas halo and Limetta hydrangeas. Those all bloom white and green, and just be surrounded with these beautiful hydrangeas on all sides. Right now I have Florette's dahlia collection in here, and once we go into the library I can show you some of those close up. And now I have the hyacinth bean vine, which I am trying to train to attach itself to the windows, creating this tunnel back here next to my compost pile. So hopefully before the first frost, we can walk through here and just kind of hit the book nook through this tunnel of purple hyacinth bean vine. I just thought that would be kind of fun and different and whimsical. But this area will continue to change and evolve in the months ahead, and we'll really start to focus on it in October when my bulbs arrive. That's when we'll really start to move things around. Sharing Grace is producing a lot of different beautiful colors, pinks, whites, oranges, yellows, and Grace's favorite is this red one right here that's loved by the butterfly. This one of you called eyelashes, and the one right next to it and in the distance there is Martha Miller. It looks like we have a bee, still a little bit sleepy on Martha Miller at the moment. She's over in the corner. So that's the main update on the book nook, and I'm really excited to bring this vision I have in my mind to life. Now, as we laid the gravel, one thing that I started to think about, because I've mentioned many times in the past how this area specifically is a big problem in terms of growing grass, because our driveway drains into this grass here, and I've tried to bring the level up in the past, but the grass just never really grows. It's a skinny strip of grass, so I've converted a lot of it to clover. But you know how it goes with a dog. It's just part of having a dog and loving a dog. It's hard to have perfect looking grass in a narrow area like this, which is totally okay with me. What I'm thinking moving forward is actually removing this grass and clover and doing the same gravel. And I think what I'll do is take a picture of the main flower walk, put it into Canva, and then just, you can tap something on Canva and then change it with AI. So if you just tap the clover right here, I can even show you right now what the area would look like with gravel and flagstone, and then kind of stop that gravel path right at the Nicotiana. So I really would like your thoughts and opinions on that. I prefer grass. I would love to keep grass, but I think I just have to accept that in this area, it's just really not working, and I think it does take away from the main flower walk. Even though maybe I want grass in this area, gravel would look nicer, probably be easier to maintain in the long run. But like I say, I really am looking for your thoughts and opinions on that. If there's any downside to putting gravel here that I'm not thinking of, any kind of big maintenance issue that I'm not thinking of, those of you who are kind of in a really, really wet and humid environment where you have a drainage issue, I would just really appreciate and respect all the thoughts that you can give me on this. So here's David Howard. David Howard has this beautiful deep purple foliage, gorgeous sherbet orange blooms. Still, it's blooming with an open center. and we have cooled down, so I'm not sure why that's happening. But I do have another wave of orange zinnias in this area, and you see all this lady's mantle, the Veronica. I had cut all of that back in very early July, so this is all new foliage 2 months later. So now let's leave the main flower walk, and I'll take you over to the driveway garden. So this year I've been trying to take the driveway garden, which was this informal park-like garden with a lot of different bulb successions, and I wanted to transition it into a more whimsically formal garden with a lot of good shrubs for cutting, but still create a beautiful picture over here for us to look at, because this is a garden that we really don't spend any time in at all. It's just a garden that we look at, and I wanted it to be a little bit less labor, have a lot more repetition. So the only plants I have in here, sorry about Grace, she wants to come back outside. We have the liriope lining the driveway. We've got catmint in here. Everything is purple and pink. We have the fig, a pufferfish hydrangea there, which I think I'm gonna go ahead and move somewhere. Serendipity alliums. And then what I wanna do here with these boxwoods is just get 2 more, I think. The incredible hydrangeas and the instant hedge in the front yard are doing great. And I have to show you something really special that I just discovered. You see those milkweed plants that I left there in the background? Well, check this out in the corner of the instant boxwood hedge. Seeing this makes all the garden work worthwhile, and there was even more of these chrysalises in the boxwood the other day, and I even got to see a monarch butterfly emerge from one, which was really, really special, because growing up, my grandma and I we would catch them, not catch them, you know, like in a mean way, but we would put them in these really large jars, and we would watch them transition inside before re-releasing them. So it's just so wonderful to see that over in the front yard. So I just grabbed Grace, pulled a carrot from my husband's garden, and look at this. Just hanging out on the grass. Can you see it up there? I'm getting goosebumps right now. Let's see if we can see it up close on Bacardi. Oh, I feel like I'm gonna cry. Okay, so that Bacardi, you can tell it has some earwigs living in it. That's okay. But here's what it looks like. Isn't it beautiful? I feel like I can't say goodbye to this monarch. Do you think it's brand new right out of the chrysalis? So let's head back into the library for our book chat. The book that I'm going to recommend today, I like so much that I accidentally bought it for a second time this week. I'm either showing my age or just so crazy about gardening that I need 2 of all my favorite books. So actually, if you're one of my local friends and you want a copy of this book, I have the other one in my car at the moment. And I want to make sure I show you these Floret Alpenglow zinnias because I cut most of them. So I made this arrangement, I think it's been about 4 days. So it's definitely going over at the moment. But her zinnias are so beautiful, and I think I prefer this linen color. And I was able to only use the pink linen ones in the original design, but I've been having to replace them with those orangey yellow hues because I just don't have enough of the linen right now. So I actually took some zinnia cuttings earlier today, and I'm going to have a video coming out on how to do that in just a few days' time. But let's take a look at this book. Let's see if I give Grace a cucumber if she'll calm down. That'll keep her busy for a little while we talk about this book. So this is called On Garden Style by Bunny Williams. Bunny, I believe she has 2 books, at least I have 2 of her books on gardening. I definitely prefer this one. The size is nicer, and this is all glossy paper versus the other one is quite large, which I still really like, but a lot of the paper is matte. Half of it's matte, half of it's glossy. But the reason why I really like this book, and I would recommend it in terms of garden design, probably once again for people who aren't garden designers or like myself, don't have any formal training, we're just coming at this with a passion and love for gardening, is that she kind of walks you through garden design in really easy to understand, easy to digest tidbits. So it's going to be just a few paragraphs basically on everything, on how to decide if you want formal or informal, how to lay it out. I mean, just everything that you could think of in terms of what you need to do before you start to design a garden, and then how to go and carry it out is in this book. And you know, I always like Bunny because she always talks about creating a home that just makes everybody feel really comfortable and welcome. And that's something that's really important to me, is that I'm trying to create a space that makes sense for my family. That's why I basically abandoned that idea of growing cut flowers in rows, but still continue to sell cut flowers on a very small scale, is because I wanted to find a way to make these garden rooms for my family, but still also do something that I love, which is growing and selling cut flowers. I do feel like I have a long way to go, but thankfully we have a lifetime to get there, as the garden is always evolving and changing. And I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you, and Grace and I will see you sometime soon. Good morning, friends, and welcome to a snowy December garden walk and talk. Today I'm going to be showing you the back garden as well as taking you inside my home for an amaryllis and paperwhite tour. So let's start here in the hydrangea room. About a week ago, I cut back all of my hydrangeas, and I decided to take those cuttings and put them on this green giant tree that you see through Hummingbird Way. Last year we did a very elaborate dried flower Christmas tree that I adorned with bird cups filled with bird seed and also birdhouse gourds. And you can see some birds down below there, so maybe I'll stand at a distance for a second. The reason why I decided not to do the cups this year is because since we get so much moisture, whether that be snow or rain, the seed in the cups were getting wet almost the day after I put them out, and I was just a little bit worried about the birds' safety. So I'll show you what I did instead. And truth be told, I need my husband's help to get up a little bit higher in the tree to get that last strand of hydrangea garland up. But yes, I do see some birds around. I gave a lot of the gourds to my mom, and she painted them with leather dye, or I guess I should say she dyed them with leather dye. So instead of the cups, I made these pine cone peanut butter and bird seed ornaments, and I wired those onto the tree. Hopefully that will be better and safer for the birds. I really loved the way that the bird cups looked, but I was just really concerned about having soaking wet food out here for them that I wasn't really able to change out daily. You can see some birds visiting us right here. I also added to these pots since you visited the garden last. I decided to cut back my red twig dogwood and my yellow twig dogwood all the way back to the ground. I did a rejuvenation prune on those shrubs, and so I used all of those cuttings in these 6 pots from Henry's studio. And then we have some Nellie Stevens holly, some cryptomeria, and some steeplechase arborvitae in those pots. Boy, it's really coming down now, friends, isn't it? I wonder if it's gonna stick or if it's just all gonna melt as the day goes on. So we can head into the garden library now. And as we approach the door, you really get that wonderful fragrance of eucalyptus. On this tree, I used willow, baby blue, and silver dollar eucalyptus. I received 2 beautiful eucalyptus garlands from Jackson and Perkins. I put one on the mantle, and then the other one I took apart in pieces and I put it all over this tree. And I'm really enjoying the browns and the baby blues together. Kind of matches this chair that I got from a consignment store. I will never forget the day when I found this chair at a consignment store for $20, and this elderly gentleman helped me strap it into the trunk of my car. I can't believe I didn't get pulled over that day, but I will never forget that gentleman who helped me. So I really don't have much on the tree, just some pine cone ornaments and those classic icicles. I did a lot of copper bows. And then the only other thing I added in was pussy willow, just to add in one more natural element from the garden. And then if I swing us around to the mantle, the same exact thing, that beautiful eucalyptus garland, bringing in some of the pussy willow and a nice big bow with 6 new candlesticks, and then just a little bit of eucalyptus on top. So I think that's pretty much all of our outside garden updates. So now let's head inside and see some beautiful amaryllis in bloom. I did steal some hydrangeas from this garden also in making that gourd Christmas tree. And I'm not sure if I showed you that I moved our flower lady over here. I like her so much better over here in the driveway garden. And I also would love to update you on the amaryllis projects that we did together. So let's start by taking a look at that waxed amaryllis wreath that we made about a month ago. I took 3 ruby star amaryllis, dipped them in cheese wax, and I attached the first one to this beautiful wreath that I got from Jackson and Perkins. I just attached the bulb to the wreath with 16 gauge copper wire, tied a bow around it for extra security, and now it's in bloom. And isn't it darling? I just love this variety, and I think it's the perfect amaryllis for this wreath. Now moving on from that, we have my all-time favorite amaryllis, Magical Touch. This comes to us from the Netherlands from a very, very famous breeder named Ton Peter van Nieuwerk, I believe is how you say his name. He's bred a lot of the amaryllis that you're going to see on the market today. So I have 5 of those in an old pot. Now down here we had all of those red waxed amaryllis. I think I showed you those. I decided to go ahead and cut the stems of those amaryllis. This variety is called Minerva. And I put about 8 stems in this antique clay pot. And I've set that on a platter that belongs to my mom. She said I could keep that through the Christmas season. So that's awesome. Coming up from that, we have Nymph. Ton also did breed Nymph. And this is the original from the Nymph series. Such a beautiful variety. Let me see, is it focusing? There we go. Beautiful white color, a little bit of candy cane striping towards the center. And I have 3 of those bulbs in this old stone pot, surrounded by some of my favorite artwork. If I need to stake any of my amaryllis, I like to use peony cage leg. So I just disassemble the peony cage, take the leg, insert it right behind the stem of the amaryllis, and then I like to use waxed dental floss because that's very gentle on the amaryllis stem to help it stay upright. Sometimes I use ribbon. Over here we have a couple more. Over here next to the record player we have Exposure, Ferrari, and Rapido will probably open tomorrow, so I'm sorry we missed that one. I'm really enjoying Exposure. It's this beautiful pink and white amaryllis with a green center. Ferrari is just your standard red amaryllis, but it does go to a nice deep red towards the center, and it's a nice open face amaryllis, so I like that. Rapido really just looks like Red Lion. Now as we go into the dining room, I do have my grandma's bells playing, so you'll hear that in the background. I'll do a more elaborate floral display as we get closer to Christmas, probably on Christmas Eve. Over here we have another ruby star amaryllis in bloom. This one is also one of the bulbs that we encased in cheese wax. I think you might be able to see the color a little bit better over here by this window. And right next to that is the boxwood tree that we made with the 2 potatoes. I do have 2 vases of paper whites. They've started to bloom, so I think they should be in full bloom for Christmas. At least I hope so. This variety is Nur, N-I-R, and the one behind us is Ziva. I did break out the amaryllis china for Christmas. And over here by our coffee bar, we have our amaryllis Christmas tree, which is adorned with white candle amaryllis that are inserted into water tubes. I have my grandma's Christmas bells playing. And we have 2 amaryllis over here that I really love. Arctic Nymph is not in bloom yet, but this one is a new variety from Israel called Glee. I think it just came onto the market in 2022, and man, is this a beautiful one. I definitely want to order more Glee bulbs next year. The amaryllis that I have on the tree are lasting about a week in water tubes. And whenever I take them off, my daughter always asks where the white flowers are, so I try to keep the tree full of amaryllis at all times. And in terms of the amaryllis chandelier that we made together, I don't currently have enough amaryllis to put more amaryllis on the chandelier. And you know, honestly, it kind of dried out within maybe 4 days. So I might put fresh greens in that for Christmas because it's currently Sunday and I am hosting Christmas this year. Here in the kitchen, I did some cut amaryllis and paper whites. Once again, we have that beautiful nymph amaryllis. Down below that, Arctic Nymph, and just some Ziva paper whites right here. And I did take note of a post that one of you sent me on Instagram where you put a bunch of slices in the stem of an amaryllis and then swirl them around in the bottom of a vase. And I do think that looks kind of fun and different. And I wanted to see if that decreased the vase life of an amaryllis if you did that. So I will definitely keep you posted on how these hold up. The Aquaro bulb that we encased in dried lavender isn't blooming yet, but I think it might open in time for Christmas because we still have 3 days left. So I just wanted to show you what that looked like. And I really love getting that smell of the dried lavender when I come into this room. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining me for this December garden walk and talk. I want to wish you all a wonderful holiday season, and I will see you sometime very soon. Bye, friends. Gracie, would you like to say Merry Christmas to everybody? Did you take another bow off the tree? Should we show them what it looks like now? Say, look out the window, guys. So much more snow now. Gracie, you're half in and you're half out. What's going on here?